Shota 141 Farewells. Rinjiro looked at his students and said, "Come, let's go out to eat." His students followed him. Miko asked, "Which restaurants are open at this time of the day, sensei?" Rinjiro replied, "The ramen shop should be open. Follow quickly. It's my treat." He flickered. His students immediately began the race. They arrived at the shop and ordered their ramen. Rinjiro asked, "What have you planned for the future?" Miko replied, "I will join the Konoha police force." Hoka said, "My father will arrange for me to join a squad. So I will be doing more missions." Fujin answered, "I'm not sure. I haven't thought about it. I guess I will spend some time mastering the wind vacuum technique." Rinjiro thought and said, "Miko, I know all Uchiha join the police force. However, there aren't many opportunities to fight in the police force. I would recommend you to go on a few missions. It will provide you with more experience that will be helpful in becoming a Junin." Miko nodded and said, "Yes, sensei. If the police force isn't a challenge, then I'll take difficult missions as well." Rinjiro smiled. He looked at Hoka and said, "Hoka, don't forget to train ninjutsu as well." Hoka nodded and said with reluctance, "Yes, sensei." Rinjiro looked at Fujin and said, "Fujin, training is good, but don't forget to do missions as well. In a battlefield, your skills will grow at a much faster pace than in a training field." Fujin nodded and said, "Yes, sensei." Tucci served ramen. They began eating. While eating, Rinjiro said, "Chunin is an important phase. Your leadership skills will be developed at this rank, and you will be able to undertake a variety of missions and cooperate with a large number of fellow Chunins. When undertaking missions, do a few missions with Chunins you have never worked with. It will help you understand the skills of a lot more ninjas, and you could also find techniques or jutsus that suit you perfectly, so keep your mind open and observe everyone properly." He took a pause and said with a serious tone, "Of course, the most important thing is that you take care of your life. Don't take unnecessary risks and complete the missions in the most efficient ways. Don't try to get interesting fights when you can finish your enemy off with lesser efforts." All three nodded seriously. Until now, they could play around as they had Rinjiro looking after their backs, but that won't be the case anymore. Rinjiro said, "There is another thing that I want you to know. Fujin, do you recall our conversation about Keki Genkai?" Fujin thought for a bit and said, "Yes, sensei." Miko asked, "What did you discuss?" Rinjiro replied, "We didn't discuss much." He looked at Fujin and said, "Last time, I didn't tell you some details as you were still training. The truth is that other than inheriting a Keki Genkai from a bloodline, you can also create a Keki Genkai by fusing two natures." Miko and Hoka were surprised to learn this. Fujin was shocked. He thought, "What the hell? Keki Genkai can be created by people who don't have any relations to that bloodline?" Miko asked. "How can Keki Genkai be created, sensei?" Rinjiro said, "Let's take the example of Scorch Release. It is a Keki Genkai that forms from the fire and wind natures. If a ninja has mastered these two natures and can fuse the two natures perfectly, then that ninja will be able to use Scorch Release." Miko quickly asked in an excited tone, "Does this mean that I can have two Keki Genkai?" Rinjiro nodded and said, "If you can fuse two elements perfectly, then yes." He paused for a few seconds to let his students absorb this information. He continued, however, "It is almost impossible to do this. Very few are known to attain a Keki Genkai through this method. I didn't tell you about this earlier because I didn't want you to waste your time on this. Even someone as talented and strong as Lord Hokage couldn't manage to do this." Fujin thought, "Oh, even Hiro-sen can't do it." But he said that very few could do this. Who were they, and how did they manage to fuse them? Miko asked, "How to fuse two elements, sensei?" Rinjiro smiled and answered, "I don't know, I never managed to do it. The basic requirement is that you should have a complete mastery of two natures. Only then can you attempt to fuse them. No one from Konoha ever managed to do this. Lord Second and Third spent quite a few years trying this but never succeeded. One of the Sanins, Orochimaru, also tried without any success. But we researched this a lot and concluded that managing to fuse two natures needs a lot of luck and maybe some sort of epiphany. While talent is also a factor, it isn't enough to achieve this." This information decreased the hopes of Fujin and Miko. Hoka wasn't concerned about this. Fujin thought, "An epiphany. I guess that is the only explanation that can explain the likes of Kakashi, Hiruzen, and Orochimaru not achieving this. Still, this is definitely worth a try, though I need to decide which elements to try." After analyzing, Fujin asked, "Sensei, is this method only valid for elemental Keki Genkai? Can Keki Genkai such as Sharingan, Byakugan, or Shikosumikali also be created?" Miko and Hoka were surprised by this question. They both looked at Fujin as he had just mentioned their Keki Genkai. Rinjiro answered, no, at least, there has been no record of those 3 Keki Genkai appearing outside their bloodlines. Fujin was disappointed. He sighed internally, thinking, just when I thought I had an easier way to climb to the top, I am not sure how much aid an elemental Keki Genkai will provide me. But something like Sharingan or Shikostu Mikali would have buffed me up a lot. Renjiro said, anyways, don't bother trying to fuse 2 natures anytime soon. None of you has even mastered 1 nature manipulation to a sufficient degree. Fusing would need 2 natures at a similar level as my earth and water natures. I told you just so that you guys would be aware, so that if one of you gets lucky and has that epiphany in the future, you won't miss out on the good fortune. The trio nodded. Fujin thought, my wind element is still not at that level. Guess there really is no need to consider this anytime soon. The group finished their ramen and left the shop. Rinjiro looked at his students and said, I am glad that Lord Hokage assigned me as your sensei. You have become fine ninjas. All 3 respectfully bowed and said in unison, thank you for teaching and training us, sensei. Rinjiro looked with an emotional look and said, leave, take some rest. He flickered away. Fujin, Hoka and Miko saw Rinjiro flickering. Hoka said in a sad voice, I'll miss training under him. We got so strong in a year. Fujin nodded, yes, we were lucky to have him as our sensei. From what I have heard, other senseis don't put this much effort into their students. Miko nodded and said, yes, even my parents were very respectful of him. The trio looked at each other. Fujin said, I guess it means that we won't see each other often either. Hoka and Miko nodded. Hoka said, well, we could take missions together once in a while. Miko nodded, yes, that will be fun. She looked at Hoka and smirked. Maybe you would learn something that could help you join my and Fujin's combo attack. Hoka's shoulders dropped. Though he had developed a lot of combination jutsus with Fujin and Miko, none came close to Fujin and Miko's wind and fire combination. Fujin said, I heard that Jiraiya of the Sanins uses oil jutsu to strengthen his fire jutsus. I am not sure if that is a part of water release. But if it is, then you can check that. That way both oil and wind would amplify Miko's fire jutsu. Both Hoka and Miko were surprised by the suggestion. Hoka said, I had never thought of oil. Miko said, me neither. Fire, wind and oil combination seems very strong. Great idea, Fujin. Hoka asked, why didn't you tell me about this sooner? Fujin shrugged and answered, I just had that thought. Besides, did you really want to learn more ninjutsu while our training was on? Hoka immediately became embarrassed. He replied, sorry. Good point. The 3 exchanged glances. They didn't have any more words. Hoka said, let's leave, guys. Good luck. Next time we meet, let's have a battle royale again. Hoka and Miko grinned. Fujin replied, sure. Hopefully the next time you 2 will last longer. Fujin began laughing. Miko and Hoka angrily looked at Fujin, but he had flickered away. Only his laugh could still be heard. Miko said, that jerk is still as annoying as ever. Hoka sighed and said, yes, he was so quiet in the academy. I didn't think he'd have this side as well. Miko said, anyways, see you later, Hoka. Hoka nodded and replied, see you as well. They both left towards their home. Team Rinjiro, which was assembled a year ago and completed 7 rank D, 41 rank C and 3 rank A missions, was finally disbanded. Chapter 142 Plans for the Future. Fujin went straight to his home after leaving. While moving, he thought, what a crazy mission. Never thought I'd run into Kakazu so early. I'm not ready to face Akatsuki. It's doubtful that I'd be anytime soon. Sigh, this world is so dangerous. I need to increase the intensity of my training. And I need better ways of escaping. I am not sure if wind instantaneous body jutsu would be sufficient. After reaching his house, Fujin jumped into his bed. He was mentally exhausted from the encounter and physically exhausted due to running non-stop for hundreds of kilometers. He fell asleep. He slept till late afternoon. After waking up, he thought, so what to do now? He thought for a bit and said, I will have to calculate a lot. Let me fill my stomach first. He went out for lunch and returned in the evening. Before returning, he went to the Hokage's building and booked the training ground 23 for himself for the next few months. After returning home, he grabbed a book and a pen and sat on his bed. He sat in a meditative pose and began analyzing. After a while, he opened his eyes. He concluded, Konoha is notoriously famous for being very strict with Junin promotions. It's safe to say that I won't become a Junin for at least 3 years, likely more, so I won't get any access to any A-rank wind jutsus for a long time. And I already have learnt the good B-rank wind jutsus. So once I master those B-rank wind jutsus, I can work on diversifying my skill set. Problem is that there are way too many things that I want to learn. Right now, the most important thing is mastering air bullet jutsu and vacuum bullet jutsus. I need to be able to perform them without any hand signs. I also need to learn to shoot multiple vacuum bullets. But from what Hiruzen said, I'll need quite some time before I'll be able to do it. He said that it will come naturally to me after performing a crazy number of vacuum bullet jutsus. But he didn't say how many times I'd need to practice it. I will make a decision on this after learning to use it without any hand signs. Next, I'll need to learn the Bienk wind jutsus and perform them without hand signs as well. The next two important aspects are learning the lightning element and learning Fuin jutsu. I am not sure how easy or difficult the lightning element will be, especially since I have to keep it a secret. As for Fuin jutsu, that should be easy. I can spam shadow clones for learning Fuin jutsu, but I won't be able to practice it alongside ninjutsu training. The best time to learn Fuin jutsu will be when I am learning lightning manipulation, but it will have to stop when I start learning lightning jutsus. I'll make the decision when the time comes. After lightning and Fuin jutsu, I will try those ideas I have for wind jutsus. But I am afraid that some of those applications of wind chakra could injure me if I don't control it perfectly, so I will need to learn mystical palm before it. My chakra control is very good, so learning mystical palm shouldn't be an issue right now. The skills that I am happy with are the Senju Taijutsu style and Samurai Saber technique. My taijutsu and swordsmanship are both excellent, especially when paired with long-range wind jutsus. I would like to raise my Senju Taijutsu to Tsunade's way of fighting. But it won't be easy. I had been trying it while training with Renjuro without a hint of success. Also, before I try to learn more ninjutsus, I have to sort out my current jutsus. I have learnt quite a lot of jutsus, but I don't use a few of them first. I have to decide which jutsus I want to keep using. Then I will have to perfect them. That leaves just genjutsu. I haven't focused on genjutsu much. My focus has been more on ninjutsu, taijutsu and kanjutsu. I guess I should learn that genjutsu Tobirama had created to fight against the Uchiha. But for the rest, it's probably best to not even try. After all, no matter how skillful I may become, it's impossible to match the Sharingan in genjutsu. I might as well just focus on countering genjutsu. I would also like to learn Junitsu, but I guess that will follow after Fuin jutsu. So that can wait. I guess that's all for now. The only idea left. Fujin extended his right forearm forward. He tightened his palm. Chakra appeared on his palm. It rotated at a high speed and began taking the form of a sphere. It was slightly unstable initially, but soon it maintained a proper sphere shape. Fujin thought, I haven't practiced Rasengan at all for over a year. I could barely form it before I graduated. Now I need to master this jutsu properly. From the time I graduated, my chakra reserves and control have improved many folds. So mastering Rasengan shouldn't be taxing now. I need to be able to use it in combat situations. He went back to his bed and began writing down all the jutsus that he had learnt so far. Transformation jutsu, clone jutsu, substitution jutsu, body flicker jutsu, shadow clone jutsu, Rasengan, shadow clone, explosion jutsu, wind release scale jutsu, wind clone jutsu, wind levitation jutsu, projectile control jutsu, wind retrieving jutsu, gale surge jutsu, breakthrough jutsu, dust cloud jutsu, wind explosion jutsu, propelling winds jutsu, great breakthrough jutsu, spinning shield of wind jutsu, wind gale wolf jutsu, wind dragon jutsu, wind instantaneous body jutsu, wind sword jutsu, infinite breakthrough jutsu, wind torpedo jutsu, air bullet jutsu, vacuum sphere jutsu, vacuum bullet jutsu, earth release rock shield jutsu, earth military movement jutsu, mud moat jutsu, earth release camp jutsu, earth instantaneous body jutsu, earth holding jutsu, earth wall jutsu, genjutsu, double vision jutsu, demonic illusion, hell viewing jutsu. Fujin saw the list and had just one thought. When the fuck did I learn 37 jutsus? He sighed and exclaimed, no wonder I felt the need to sort my jutsus. Sigh, this is so much work. He began analyzing all his jutsus and their utility. After what seemed like an epic, Fujin was finally done. He concluded his thoughts. Among 36 jutsus, only 3 jutsus are completely useless for me. Clone jutsu, wind torpedo jutsu and earth holding jutsu. Wind clones are a much better option as compared to clone jutsu. As for wind torpedo jutsu, vacuum bullet jutsu does a much better job. As for earth holding jutsu, it is too slow to be useful for anything. There are also some redundancies. Breakthrough, great breakthrough and infinite breakthrough jutsus are just advanced forms of each other. In fact, aspects of both jutsus are covered in the infinite breakthrough jutsu. So, once I master the infinite breakthrough, I'll be able to increase its power by super K-off or decrease its power to great breakthrough or even breakthrough by just controlling my chakra. It is the same with rock shield and earth wall jutsus, and with earth military movement and earth instantaneous body jutsus. Then there are some very basic jutsus: gale, wind retrieving, projectile control, wind levitation jutsu, propelling winds jutsu, and dust cloud jutsus. Though these jutsus seem good, they don't work in a fast-paced battle, but I have already mastered them. And I have a cool idea for them, so I'll set them aside for now. Next are utility jutsus. These can provide some uses. Gale jutsu can be used to cover up footprints and smell. Earth release camp jutsu can be used to make a hideout. Mud moat jutsu can be used to set up traps. These jutsus are handy, but I don't need to master them as I won't use them in battle. Now for the important part, that is combat. I will divide jutsus into 4 parts: offense, defense, movement and support. For defense, I have earth wall jutsu and spinning shield of wind jutsu. Both are good and mastered, and I have some ideas to improve the spinning shield of wind jutsu, and I always have the option of escaping underground. This should be sufficient. For movement, I have substitution jutsu, body flicker jutsu, wind instantaneous body jutsu, and earth instantaneous body jutsu. All 4 have been mastered. I wonder if there would be any lightning jutsu that promotes speed in the library. Anyways, this is good for now. The only ways that I know to improve this substantially are learning the lightning chakra mode or flying thunder god. For support, I have shadow clone and wind clone jutsus. Both are good, especially when combined with shadow clone explosion jutsu. I also want to transform wind dragon jutsu and gale wind wolf jutsu into support. Otherwise, they aren't very effective. Lastly, offense. I guess I can further divide offense into close range, mid-range and long range. For close range offense, well, that's a surprise. I only have race and jun. Makes sense, I suppose. My sword is plenty, and my taijutsu is good as well. I guess I can improve this further by learning elemental race in jun, and maybe a jutsu like Chidori. For mid-range offense, I have wind explosion jutsu, wind sword jutsu, infinite breakthrough jutsu, air bullet jutsu, vacuum bullet jutsu, and vacuum sphere jutsu. I should stop using wind explosion and air bullet as soon as I can, and instead use vacuum sphere and vacuum bullet. Only with sufficient practice will I be able to reach a stage where vacuum jutsus feel as natural as those jutsus. I guess genjutsu would come under mid-range offense as well. I need to try using these 2 jutsus during missions against enemy chunnings and see how effective they are. Though in the long run they won't be very effective. Lastly, long-range offense. All my support jutsus double up as long-range offense. Infinite breakthrough and vacuum bullet jutsus also double up as long-range jutsus, especially vacuum bullet, which has a fearsome penetrating power. Alright, this is it. That covers all my jutsus. I can form a battle system. Senju Taijutsu style and swordsmanship for close range, vacuum bullet, wind sword, vacuum sphere and infinite breakthrough for mid and long range attacks, earth wall and spinning shield of wind for defense. Wind and shadow clones for support, body flicker and substitution for dodging, wind earth instantaneous body jutsus for escaping, and my chakra field to sense or scout enemies. The only aspects that are missing are healing and maybe sealing. Once I learn mystical pom jutsu and a good seal, I should be a complete ninja who covers all aspects. Once this is done, I will pick one aspect and just focus on it till I reach among the top tier ninjas in that aspect. Fujin's face became very determined. The determination to become strong could be seen in his eyes. Fujin once again looked at the jutsus he had written and sighed. To think that just analyzing my current skills will get so complicated. That too when I have just focused on only one element. What a mess will this become if I master a few more elements and learn more jutsus. Fujin took one final look at the book. Suddenly, chakra appeared in his hands and covered the book. The book was shredded into tiny pieces. Fujin used wind levitation jutsu to keep the small pieces afloat. He collected them and burned everything, leaving no signs of it. With the jutsus analyzed, Fujin began thinking about Renjuro's words. So elements can be fused to create a Keki Genkai, huh? Well, I had thought, I really didn't think it'd be possible. But should I try to create one? Fujin began thinking. After a while, he concluded, an elemental Keki Genkai is very helpful in distinguishing from other normal ninjas. If I were to master an elemental Keki Genkai at this very moment, I'll become strong enough to confront veteran Junens by myself. I might not win, but fighting equally and retreating would be very easy. But beyond this, an elemental Keki Genkai isn't much help. At max, I can expect to reach the elite Junin level. but considering that it'll be a few years till I master 2 elements, I should already be close to that level. So an elemental Kekkei Genkai wouldn't be that useful. Another question is that if I decide to create one, which Kekkei Genkai should I create? My top 2 elements are wind and lightning. That gives swift release. My third element is fire. I am not sure what fire and lightning do together. Fire and wind together should give scorch release. Scorch release is relatively good. The only known user was at S rank, so getting it could be a good help to reach that level. As for swift release, their bloodline was wiped out during the warring period. Though a few swift release users pop up, none have been famous, and there is barely any information in the library. That said, swift release is a bit unidimensional. All it does is increase speed, and I am already very fast. The main question will be, does swift release amplify my max speed? Or would it just help me reach some default speed and be useless if I already exceed that speed? If it's the latter, then it'll be a waste. But if it's the former, then it can be insanely good. If in the future I get my hands on the Raikage's lightning chakra mode technique and combine it with swift release and my own speed and they all stack up, I'll easily be the fastest ninja ever, and there is no need to even think about how overpowered that speed would make me, especially if I even add the flying thunder god to the mix. Suddenly, Fujin stopped thinking. A wry smile appeared on Fujin's face as he realized. So I am dreaming needlessly. I don't know whether I'd manage to learn even one of those 3 skills, let alone all 3. Not to mention, I have no whatsoever expertise in fire or lightning elements. I haven't learned even a single jutsu of those 2 elements, and Rinjuro said that even my wind nature hasn't reached that level. So it's pointless to think or dream about this right now. After concluding his thoughts, Fujin decided, well, rest for today. Tomorrow morning, my solo training begins. Chapter 143 New Routine Advanced Fuin Jutsu. Fujin woke up at 4:30 am after freshening up. He turned up his training seal's power to 60% and left for the training ground he had booked. He began the physical training that Renjuro used to put them under. He trained hard till 9 am. After a short break to rest and eat, he began practicing the air bullet jutsu. His aim was to reduce its required hand signs to 0. He trained for a couple of hours. Before taking a break for lunch, he trained another couple of hours after lunch, till his chakra started to drop low. He sighed. So stupid. I didn't consider the fact that I will run out of chakra. Especially while practicing B-rank jutsus. Anyways, what to do? I could increase my stamina by consuming soldier pills, but it won't be healthy in the long run. I guess I should just devote time to other activities when I am close to running out of chakra. I should go to the library and read Fuin Jutsu scrolls, though Ikiraka comes first, and once my chakra has regenerated, I can do something less chakra intensive. So I suppose taijutsu or kenjutsu. Alright, let's do that. I'll practice sword fighting with a shadow clone. Fujin left for Ikiraka. He filled his stomach with a few bowls of ramen and went to the library. He thought, I have completed the Fuin Jutsu scrolls from sections E and D during the academy days. Let's see what the scroll in section C has. He entered the C section of the library. He searched for a bit and found the scroll he was looking for. He grabbed the scroll and went to a desk and sat down. The title of the scroll was Intermediate Fuin Jutsu Guide. He opened it and began reading it. He read the entire scroll in one go and summarized. So finger carving seal is at intermediate level, and so is the 5 seal barrier. Considering that this barrier stopped a Jinwekarik, a medical ninja surpassed only by Tsunade, an S-rank ninja and a former S-rank ninja, I thought that it would be much higher in rank. Still, it is very complicated. Learning it will be tough. Binding cloth is also here. It was what was used to seal the Edo Tensei, but the seal tag isn't here. Binding cloth without that sealing tag is kinda useless. And lastly, there are details about making explosion tags. Sigh, there isn't much in this scroll. It was disappointing. I hope that the scroll in the B section has better and more Fuin Jutsu. He closed the scroll, put it back where it was and went to the B section. The number of scrolls in the B section was very low. But when he found what he was looking for, he was surprised. Fujin thought, what the hell, the C section barely had anything related to Fuin Jutsu, and this section has 6 scrolls. He began reading the names of each scroll. They were titled Advanced Fuin Jutsu Theory Miscellaneous Seals, Miscellaneous Seals, 2 Miscellaneous Seals, 3 Battlefield Seals, Sealing Tags. Fujin grabbed the Advanced Fuin Jutsu Theory scroll and began reading. This scroll had a lot of advanced level theories about Fuin Jutsu. It introduced a few more special characters that were needed to make more seals, and it described the information about other scrolls. After reading, Fujin analyzed so many additional theories. But many of them haven't been implemented successfully yet. Anyways, the miscellaneous seal scrolls apparently have a lot of seals to make daily life easier. They were made for the benefit of the common people and to promote safer trade in transport. Looks like it was a project undertaken by Uzushio Gaturi, but left incomplete due to its destruction. The battlefield seal scroll has seals that can be used on the battlefield. Though they aren't useful in an actual battle, they can be used for other purposes. And lastly, the sealing tag scroll. This is what I am looking forward to the most. Additionally, the scroll also says that if I manage to learn all the seals in these 5 scrolls, I will be considered a seal master. He put back the scroll and grabbed the sealing tag scroll and began reading it. His excitement dropped a bit. He analyzed. There are only 3 seals here. The sealing tag, which can be used to seal Edo Tensei. It can also be used to stop summons and has quite a few applications. Then there is the chakra suppression seal that Renjiro used. And lastly, the barrier tag. It can be used to form barriers. So it needs maintenance, so I can't use this and leave. Anyways, though not plenty, they are good. Kinda wish that the 4-symbol seal or 5-element seal was here. But looks like they will be in the S section. Or at least I hope so. It would suck if it isn't available in the library at all. He changed the scroll for battlefield seals and began reading. This scroll had a lot of seals. After reading them all, Fujin analyzed. Wow, I didn't think this would be so useful. There are seals for all sorts of battlefield applications. Fujin's surprise wasn't unwarranted. The scroll had seals to isolate sound. It even had seals to absorb light and make a place or object very difficult to see. In addition, there were seals to prevent being seen by the Byakudan or the Sharingan, or even by sensors. Fujin guessed that these were the seals used by those Kiri squads who they eliminated inside the Land of Fire. There were a lot more useful seals in the scroll. Fujin was very impressed. He thought, no wonder Uzushio Gakure was eliminated. These seals are very potent. If an entire army learnt these seals, they would become a nightmare to face, especially in the midst of battle. Finally, he began reading the miscellaneous scrolls. While reading, Fujin's eyes lit up. The seals that were in the meditation room in the central tower of the Forest of Death in these scrolls. Even the seals on his training seal were in these scrolls. After reading all 3 scrolls, he concluded, these seals are good too. If the 5 big villages had cooperated and focused on these, then this world might have been a much better place. These seals are very good to develop this world quickly. Anyways, the most useful seals for me would be the ones used in that meditation room. In addition, there are also storage seals that can store living things safely. These too could be useful. After reading all the scrolls, Fujin put them back and sat in the library. He analyzed. There is a heck of a lot to learn in Fuin Jutsu, actually. Much of the stuff in the B section should have been placed in the C section, but I guess the village wanted to restrict their access to elite chunins and above. I'll need a lot of time to master these. Fortunately, I do have a lot of time. Additionally, I should check all the scrolls in the B section. It would be good if I find any good jutsus. More importantly, I want to see if there are any barrier jutsus, but I guess they can wait. Let me complete my current plans. He left the library and returned back to the training ground. He made a hand sign and created a shadow clone. The shadow clone appeared in front of him. Fujin summoned a couple of normal swords from his scroll. Both grabbed 1 sword each. They began fighting without exchanging any words. The main focus of the spar was swordsmanship. Neither used chakra flow. After a couple of hours, Fujin and his clone were standing in front of each other. Both were breathing hard. The clone stabbed the sword into the ground and said, "My chakra is exhausted." It dispelled. Fujin received all his memories and experiences. Fujin thought, this is good. Getting experience from both sides provides me with both perspectives. He sealed the sword back and left for Yakiniko. He needed a lot of meat to keep up with his planned routine. From the next day onwards, Fujin settled into this routine. In the morning, he would do physical training. That would be followed up by practicing and trying to master the air bullet jutsu. Once he ran low on chakra, he would either go to the library and read the seals or meditate, and he would end his training with Kenjutsu practice. Chapter 144 New House. On the 7th day of this routine, when Fujin returned back to his home, he noticed an envelope attached to his door. Fujin thought, that's new. He ripped it off and began reading. He thought, oh, this is a notice to call me to the mission office in the Hokage's office tomorrow at 8:15 am. Did the hot water daimyo send the bounty rewards? The next morning, Fujin began training once again. He ended his morning training an hour earlier and went to the Hokage building. On reaching, he saw Hoka and Miko. He went up to them. Hoka asked, "Hey Fujin, How have you been doing? Fujin replied. Well, I got back to training. What about you guys? Miko gave Fujin the stink eye and said, back to training already? You need to get a hobby, Fujin. Fujin smirked and replied, training is a hobby. Miko scoffed at his reply. Fujin looked at her and said in his mind, unlike you, I have more than a year to live. Hoka said, stop arguing, let's go inside. The trio went inside. Fujin was thinking, Naruto and Sasuke should be 7 years old when the academy starts, so I guess the Uchiha massacre will happen in the next 12 months. My transmogrification shouldn't have affected the politics around this incident. The only thing that could be considered is Hiruzen teaching Miko, but I don't think it'll have much of an impact. They reached the Hokage's office and knocked on the door. Hatake Takao opened the door and looked at them and said, the bandit exterminators. Just 3 words instantly annoyed the trio. All their faces became dark. He said, come in. The trio entered the office with dark faces. Hiruzen stopped doing paperwork and looked at them. He wondered, why do they look like they have come here to give me money instead of coming here to take money? Takao opened a drawer and grabbed 3 packets. He handed one to each one of them. Hiruzen said, you guys did a great job in the land of hot water. The joint commander of the mission, Tokudi, and their daimyo praised your work a lot. He looked at the package in their hands and said, these are the bounty rewards that daimyo has sent for you. Fujin, yours has 4.5 million ryo. Miko and Hoka, your packets have 2.5 million ryo each. Fujin saw his packet and thought, rank A missions give a shitload of money. Hiruzen's eyes didn't miss Fujin looking at his packet. He thought, this brat is very greedy. I have to ensure that he doesn't pick up any bad habits. He asked, what are you 3 planning to do with the money? Miko answered, nothing. My mom will take it all and put it in the bank. I can have access to it when I am older. Hoka said, same here, though I'll be asking my dad to get me more tools to improve my strength. Hiruzen looked at Fujin. What about you, Fujin? Fujin thought for a bit and said, I'll probably buy a new house. The one that the academy assigned me is too small and kinda old. Hiruzen was surprised. He never thought that Fujin would consider housing. Most orphans would live in their assigned houses for a long time. They would usually move out only when they get married. Hoka and Miko were surprised as well. Hoka said, that's good. Good luck, Fujin. Miko added, yes, good luck, Fujin. Invite us when it's ready. Fujin nodded. Hiruzen said, good, Takao. Arrange for a proper contractor to meet up with Fujin. Good luck, Fujin. Fujin nodded and thanked him. They left the office. Takao followed Fujin. He said, Fujin, follow me. Miko and Hoka said goodbyes and left for their respective homes. Fujin followed Takao. He led Fujin to a huge shop. It was quite close to the Hokage building. Fujin observed the shop. Many workers were working here, and all seemed busy. He entered and said, Old man Eiji. An old man looked at the entrance. He was around 60 years old. All his hair was white, but his back was still upright. Seeing Takao, he walked towards him. Takao began walking towards him. Fujin followed. Eiji said, Takao, to what do I owe the pleasure? Does Lord Hokage require my services? Takao shook his head. He said, this young man is planning to buy a house. Lord Hokage sees a lot of promise in him. So he asked me to recommend you to this young man. Eiji took a good look at Fujin. He suddenly realized and said, Fujin-kun, I remember watching you in the Chunin exams. No wonder Lord Hokage values your talent. Fujin thought, wow, I didn't think I'd be recognized. Does that make me a minor celebrity? Haha, the old man continued, actually lost some money in the betting. But seeing promising young men like you was worth it. Ha ha ha, he began laughing loudly. Fujin watched him with a deadpan look. Takao looked at Fujin and said, Fujin, old man Eiji here is one of the best architects in Konoha. He has built many houses, and usually has a few on sale too. He will give you the best deals, so choose the house you like. Fujin nodded. Takao left. Eiji watched his back as he left, though Takao spoke only a few simple sentences, which any outsider might think were casual. There were a lot of hidden messages in them. Even Fujin didn't notice any. When he said that Hokage found Fujin promising, it meant that Fujin was someone with a bright future. Eiji shouldn't try to be underhanded with him or take advantage of his younger age. When Takao told Fujin that Eiji would give him the best deals, it was actually a message for Eiji to give Fujin the best deal he could and only make minimal profits. Eiji obviously picked up on them. This wasn't the first time he had interacted with Takao. While he was impressed with Fujin's dominance in the Chunin exams, he was more impressed with the fact that he made Takao speak for him. Usually, Eiji would give the job of showing houses to one of his employees, but since Takao brought Fujin, he decided to attend to him. He looked at Fujin and asked with a smile on his face, "So Fujin-kun, have you decided on what type of house you want?" Fujin thought for a bit and answered, "I haven't decided much. The only requirements I have are that it be big and spacious." Eiji looked at Fujin for a second and thought. That is pretty much like saying nothing. Fujin looked at him and asked, "Can you show me some houses first?" He said, "Sure, can you tell me what your budget is?" Fujin replied, "That will depend on the house." Eiji was speechless by the reply. He sighed and thought, "This will be a long day." He didn't know how right he was. He nodded and said, "All right, follow me." He began walking outside. All the prime area in Konoha was already sold and occupied, so no place near the Hokage's buildings was for sale. They walked a few blocks away. After walking a bit, they reached a place where 5 houses had just been built. Eiji said, "In this area, I have just constructed these 5 houses. Check if you like any of them." Fujin observed the houses. From the outside, all looked great. All were built on an area of around 1,200 square feet, and all houses had a spacious living room on the ground floor along with a kitchen and a bathroom. On the upper floor, there were multiple master bedrooms. Fujin thought, "Not bad, the houses are good, well, at least much better than my current one. But none of them has a basement. I could try to build a basement using the camp jutsu, but I am not sure that it won't harm the foundation of the house. Also, the houses are kinda close to each other. Though they are separated by a fence, I'd like it if the houses were farther apart." Eiji stayed outside and watched Fujin. He just kept flickering from one house to another. He chuckled, "Kids, so enthusiastic about everything. Though this one would not be in his budget, unless of course Lord Hokage is paying for it." After a few minutes, Fujin left the house he looked to be in thought. Eiji asked, "Did you like the houses, Fujin-kun?" Fujin looked at him smiling. He answered, "Yes, they are well built. But do you have any houses that are not close to other houses? Also, it'd be great if they have basements." Eiji didn't expect that reply. He thought, "These are a few of my best houses," but he doesn't look impressed at all. Chapter 145 Picky Youngster. He said, "Why do you want your house to not be close to other houses?" Fujin tilted his head and said, "I did say I want them to be spacious." Right, Eiji was surprised again. He thought, "What do you plan on doing with so much space?" He said, "These are my houses with large empty spaces around them. I do have a few with even larger space, but they don't have any basements. As for the ones with basements, they don't have a large space around them." Fujin thought and said, "Can you show them to me?" Eiji nodded and said, "Sure, follow me." They began walking to the next house. While walking, Fujin asked, "How much were those houses for Mr. Eiji?" Eiji replied, "I can sell one of those houses to you for 2.2 million ryo." He thought, "They can go for over 3 million ryo, but due to Takao's words, I can sell them for just above my bottom line." Fujin was surprised. He thought, "So an elemental crystal is worth more than one house?" Rinjiro wasn't kidding about their rarity. Eiji took Fujin to look at a lot of houses. The one Fujin liked the most was a 2-story house built in a 1,500 square foot area. The land around the house was unoccupied, but it didn't have a basement, and the roads around the houses were quite busy. Since the house was in a good area, it was very pricey too. After seeing all of the houses, Fujin asked, "Do you construct new houses as well?" Eiji was tired from taking Fujin on a tour. He answered, "Yes, I do." Fujin asked, "So, can you make a new house for me with a new design?" Eiji's eyes twitched. After hours of touring, "He wants me to build a new house," he said. "Building a new house takes time, and you will have to buy the land first." Fujin looked at him with a confused look and asked, "Don't you have contacts with any sellers of land? How did you build all these houses?" Eiji didn't reply. He didn't want to argue against Fujin. It just felt like hitting his head on a wall. He sighed and said, "Yes, but buying land suddenly is very expensive, especially if you want it in a good area. Only the land at the outskirts of the village would be cheaply available." Fujin thought a bit and said, "Being on the outskirts of the village doesn't matter. It'll be best if it's closer to the training grounds." Eiji said, "Okay, I'll contact a friend of mine. Meet me back at the shop after a couple of hours." Fujin nodded. He said, "Thank you for taking the time to show me the houses." Eiji's dissatisfaction with Fujin decreased. He watched Fujin as he left and sighed. "He is an orphan. No wonder he was speaking so formally and without much emotion. I guess that he is still an innocent kid. But why are his demands for a house so strict?" He sighed and went to contact his old friend who usually sold him the land. Fujin had lunch and went to Eiji's shop in the afternoon. On entering the shop, he spotted another old guy next to Eiji. When Fujin arrived, they showed him a map of Konoha that showed the plots he had for sale. There were 5 that were suitable for Fujin. However, 3 of them were close to the residential areas of the Uchiha, Kyuubi and Aburami clans. Fujin didn't consider those. One of the plots caught his eye though. It was a 500 square meters, round 26 square feet plot. It was about 100 meters away from the civilian residential area. No clan was close to this place, and training ground 23 was very close to here. Fujin visited the plot along with the 2 old men and decided to buy it. Eiji was shocked again. Today was not a good day for his heart. He asked, "You want to buy the whole plot and not just a small part of it to build your house?" His friend looked at him with a frown on his face. He was stopping his business. Fujin said, "Oh, we can buy a small part of it as well." "What's its cost?" Eiji's friend replied, "That area is very far from the center of the village, so the prices are cheap. I can sell a 1,000 square feet area plot for 100,000 ryo, but if you buy the entire plot, I can sell it to you for 2 million ryo." Fujin thought, "Not bad, that's much better, though still quite expensive. Anyways, I don't have any big expenses lined up." He looked at Eiji and asked, "How much will constructing a house cost?" Eiji answered, "It depends on how big a house you want. A house like the ones I showed you first will cost around 500,000 ryo to construct." Fujin replied, "Great." He looked at his friend and said, "I'll buy the entire plot then. Can you go any cheaper, old man?" Eiji and his friend only had one thought: how rich is this kid? Fujin bargained over the price for a bit. In the end, he bought the whole plot for 1.6 million ryo. They did all the paperwork for the land transfer. Fujin then discussed the design of the house with Eiji. Eiji showed some of his plans. In the end, Fujin decided on a great-looking design, built on an area of 40 square feet at the center of the plot. With 3 stories and 2 basement floors, they began discussing the price and the time needed to construct the house. Eiji had seen Fujin bargain earlier. He said, "Don't bother discussing the price of construction with me. I'll quote you the lowest price. Constructing this house will cost you 188 million ryo, and it will take around 7-8 months to be entirely built." Fujin frowned. 7-8 months, that long? Eiji sighed and replied, "Do you think making a house is easy, kid? My men will first have to dig a deep hole to lay down a proper foundation. The digging itself will take 2-3 months, and your house will be very big, so we will need time to make it properly." Fujin thought, "That's reasonable." He asked, "I have one question, old man. Will you be digging the entire ground, or do you have to leave some pillars for support?" Eiji was surprised by that question. He didn't expect to hear it from Fujin. He replied, "We will be digging the entire ground. Pillars made from the ground aren't very sturdy." Fujin said, "Okay, I can get the digging done quickly then." Eiji asked, "Do you have an affinity for earth-nature manipulation?" Fujin was surprised. He thought, "I didn't expect a civilian to know about nature manipulation. Makes sense though, there should have been other ninjas who did the same." He nodded, "Yes." Eiji replied, "That's great. All right then, once you have completed digging, I will reduce the construction cost depending on how much work is done." Fujin nodded and asked another question. "Will this house be able to withstand any attacks?" Eiji replied, "Only very weaker ones. If you want, I can invite a seal master to inscribe seals on your house to make it more sturdy. But even then, it won't be able to stop something very powerful. But we are in Konoha. Such attacks won't happen on us anyways." Fujin looked at him thinking, "Yeah, there will be 2 deadly attacks on us within a decade. The house is certain to be destroyed by pain. I'd just prefer it to survive sound and sand invasion." Fujin said, "All right, you can invite the seal master then." Eiji replied, "Inviting a seal master will increase the costs." Fujin asked, "How much?" Eiji answered, "I will have to talk with him. You can expect an additional 500,000 to 1 million ryo cost." Fujin's eyes widened. He thought, "Fucking million ryo for just inscribing some seals. If money could be used to get stronger, I'd have stopped going for missions and worked as a seal master all the time." Fujin said, "All right." Eiji replied, "I will need a week to test this ground and decide on a plan to proceed. So come to my shop after a week. Once I have marked everything, you can dig the hole." Fujin nodded and left. While leaving he thought, "I didn't think that I would blow up almost the entire bounty rewards on the house. I could have saved money on the seal master. But I haven't ever professionally worked as a seal master other than selling storage scrolls, and putting seals on the house once it is done won't be as effective as applying them while constructing it. Let's forget it. I am not short on money, so it's fine. I will have to inspect the seals later though. I doubt a professional would try anything funny, but it is always better to be vigilant. Foreign jutsu has a lot of applications." Chapter 146. First mission as the team leader. The next day, Fujin returned to his training routine. A few days later, Fujin was breathing heavily. However, there was a big smile on his face. The trees in front of him were riddled with holes. He exclaimed, "Finally, I can perform vacuum bullets without using hand signs." In 11 days of training, Fujin had mastered the air bullet jutsu. The hand signs for the vacuum bullet jutsu were the same as the air bullet jutsu. He was able to perform it without hand signs a minute after mastering the air bullet jutsu. He practiced the vacuum bullet jutsu till he was comfortable, and then began practicing the infinite breakthrough jutsu. On the appointed day, he met up with Eiji. Eiji had marked his entire plot. Eiji showed him the markings and told him where and how deep to dig. Eiji and his employees cleared the area and watched with anticipation. They were looking forward to Fujin's display. In the past, they had seen some amazing feats. Unfortunately, they would be disappointed. They stood for a couple of hours to see Fujin use Earth Camp Jutsu a few hundred times to dig up the hole. In fact, most got bored and left with disappointment. Fujin checked his work and left the hole. He walked towards Eiji only to see a dumbfounded expression on his face. He asked, "What's the matter?" Eiji sighed and replied, "Nothing." Fujin said, "Please check if everything is all right." Eiji complained in his heart, "How can there be any mistakes when you work so slowly?" He said, "It's all right. It'll decrease your construction cost by 400,000 ryo. I also talked with a seal master. We decided on 600,000 ryo cost. Is that all right?" Fujin nodded and asked, "Can I watch when he inscribes the seals?" Eiji said, "Sure, it's your house after all. I'll send a worker to your house to give you the message." Fujin thanked him and left back for training. The next afternoon, Fujin was practicing the infinite breakthrough jutsu. He had already learnt how to use it without any hand signs. Its similarity with the great breakthrough jutsu allowed Fujin to master it quickly. He was now practicing Super K-Graph this jutsu quickly. However, he suddenly stopped practicing and looked in a direction. He thought, someone entered the training ground. Who? The chakra signature is very low, so either he is weak or good at hiding his chakra level. The person Fujin sensed was moving towards him. Fujin stopped practicing and waited to see who it was. After a little while, a young man in his early 20s appeared. He looked at Fujin and asked, "Hey, you are Fujin, right?" Fujin nodded and asked, "Yes." "Who are you?" He answered, "I am Endo Tadao. I came here to call you to the mission center." "You are called there," Fujin thought. "Are they finally assigning me a mission? Is he a messenger or someone who works there?" He replied, "All right, I will be there." Tadao looked at Fujin. He seemed to have no intention to leave. He said, "Can you leave now? They have called you immediately." Fujin sighed and said, "All right." Tadao expected Fujin to follow him back. However, Fujin just disappeared. He was shocked. What the hell? I just blinked my eyes and he disappeared. He immediately looked around himself but didn't find anyone. However, he saw the destruction Fujin had caused in that training ground. He muttered, he really left like that. Shikiro wasn't lying about his skill and strength. He turned around and began running back to the Hokage building. Fujin flickered to the Hokage building. He entered the building and walked into the mission center. On entering, he saw a few chunings who were working there. In addition, there were a few more ninjas. Looking at Fujin, one of the Chunin officers stood up and called him. Fujin recognized him. He was the one who assigned most of the bandit hunting missions to Team Renjuro. Fujin walked towards him while noticing two other ninjas standing in front of his desk. Shikiro said, "Fujin-kun, long time no see." Fujin nodded. He hadn't taken a mission from this room since the mission to the land of tea. Shikiro asked, "Where is Tadao?" Fujin replied, "The messenger, not sure. I came here after he asked me to." Shikiro was dumbfounded. He sighed and said, "He isn't the messenger. He will be your teammate for the next mission." Fujin thought, really? He seemed weak. Was he hiding his strength? Shikiro introduced the two ninjas next to him. "He is Kamiyama Yasuoka and he is Obukanai. Along with Endo Tadao, they will be in your team. You will be the leader of this team for this mission." Fujin's eyebrows twitched. He thought, both their chakra levels are weak as well. Don't tell Uncle. Shikiro took a document and handed it to Fujin. Fujin read the title and his face immediately became dark. Shikiro said, "Your mission is to eliminate this new bandit group. They have been creating a lot of trouble." Fujin looked at him and handed him the document back. He said, "I don't want it. Call me when you have any rank B mission for me." Yusuke and Kanai burned in embarrassment. A kid half their age was refusing to do a mission they couldn't undertake without supervision. Shikiro sighed and said, "Fujin, you have just become a Chunin. Even if you are assigned a rank B mission, you won't be selected as the team leader." That role will be taken by the more experienced Chunins. You will have to undertake rank C missions to build up your leadership skills. Only once you led in a large number of rank C missions will you be able to lead rank B missions, Fujin observed Shikiro. He sensed that he wasn't lying, but he also sensed that what he said was complete bullshit. The reason that he was giving him this mission was just so he could get a laugh from Fujin's reaction. Fujin was sure that he would give Hoka and Miko bandit elimination missions as well. Fujin was about to leave, but Shikiro stopped him and began giving a number of reasons to take this mission. Wanting to get him off his back, Fujin finally agreed. However, he said, "This is the last time I am taking a rank C mission. The next time you assign me a bandit elimination mission, I'll forge evidence that you are their ringleader." Shikiro smiled and handed him the document back. Tadao finally returned to the mission center. He was breathing heavily. Fujin looked at his 3 new subordinates and asked, "When do you guys want to leave for the mission?" Yasuoka answered, "We are ready to leave any time." Fujin said, "All right, let's meet at the village gate in a couple of hours." Fujin left to have his lunch. Tadao, Yasuoka and Kanai saw him leave. Tadao asked, "Are we getting too old?" Kanai refused, "No way. I am not even married yet." Yasuoka sighed at his teammate's antics. He said, "Well, at least he is strong, though he seems to be very arrogant. He didn't put us in his eyes at all." Shikiro chuckled and patted his back. He said, "Don't worry, he is very reasonable and balanced. And he is very strong. From what I heard, he is even stronger than me, and he has a reputation for being the bandit exterminator. You guys will be fine." Tadao, Yasuoka and Kanai sighed. They knew they had been set up by Shikiro. All 4 of them were 22 years old. They were in the same year in the academy and were good friends. Unfortunately, the 3 of them weren't very talented. They never managed to be promoted to Chunin and had already given up on it. They stayed together as a team and would only take rank C missions occasionally for the money and to stay in shape. Shikiro was a bit more talented than them. He managed to be promoted to the Chunin rank in the 3rd Great Ninja War, but he became weary of risking his life and took a desk job. After a couple of hours, Fujin and the 3 Jennings assembled. Fujin asked, "Have you prepared the necessary weapons and rations for the mission?" All 3 Jennings nodded awkwardly, as many were watching when Fujin asked this question. Fujin asked, "What are your specialties?" Tadao said, "I am good at throwing shurikens. I can hit a bullseye every single time." Yasuoka said, "I have mastered water nature manipulation." While there was no change in Fujin's expression, he scoffed in his mind. "Mastered? Why don't you put your name down as a candidate for the 5th Hokage?" Kanai said, "I can observe our surroundings carefully and pick up on clues." Fujin nodded and said, "All right, let's go." However, Tadao stopped him. "Wait, Fujin, can you tell us about your specialties?" Fujin stopped and turned around. He answered, "I know a bit of wind and earth nature manipulation and am good with clones." After answering, he turned around and began leaving. The trio were a bit surprised. They expected the preteen to brag about his prowess, but he didn't show off at all. They quickly followed him. Chapter 147, a scheme targeting Konoha. Fujin and his squad moved quickly through the forest. Kanai took the position at the front while Fujin was in the rear. Occasionally, Fujin used to activate his chakra field and sense his surroundings. Fujin sighed, thinking, "This is tough without Hoka. I could divide this job with him to reduce my workload, and his eyes could notice the stuff I missed and vice versa." After some time, Yasuoka asked, "Fujin, you became a Chunin in the last Chunin exam, right?" Fujin replied, "Yes." Yasuoka asked again, "Who were your sensei and teammates?" Yasuoka and his teammates were getting very bored by moving without talking even a bit, and talking among themselves while ignoring Fujin would have been rude. So Yasuoka began talking with Fujin. Fujin didn't have much of an interest in interacting with them. There wasn't much benefit in doing it. But as they kept on talking, Fujin realized that those guys were fun. So their talks became more cordial. At some point, Fujin asked, "How often do you guys do such missions?" Tadao answered, "It depends on our expenses. Usually, we do 1 or 2 missions per month. Shikiro assigns a Chunin to our team to lead the mission." Fujin asked, "And do you always do missions together?" Kanai nodded, "Yes. For rank C missions, we are together as a team. But if someone needs some extra money, then they take some rank D missions solo." Fujin thought, "Not bad. I guess it is a good method of making money. Well, at least to handle day-to-day needs. Plus, with the same team, they should be very familiar with each other and should have solid teamwork. Unfortunately, they are too weak. If they were at least Chunnings, their team could have been slightly famous." They continued moving towards their target. While moving, Fujin seriously considered, should I create such a team too? Having teammates with a good bond, teamwork and complementary skills could ease up the missions quite well. But even if I decide to make such a squad, who should I include? The only ones that come to mind are Miko and Hoka. Perhaps I could even ask Teru and Yuri as well, though I haven't met them for over a year. That said, both Miko and Yuri will die soon, so there isn't much point in including them. Also, both Hoka and Teru are quite headstrong, and neither have the fire element or the genjutsu skills that a new Uchiha brings to the table. Fujin thought for a bit before finally giving up. Leave it. Such a team works for these guys because they're all equally weak and have no great ambitions. Among the strong, no such teams ever formed. The only squad with an all-S rank roster that comes to my mind is the Sanins. And even they broke up. The journey to the reported area took 7 hours. Fujin sighed internally. If I was with my previous squad, we could have reached here in 3 hours. Unfortunately, not only were these guys slow, but they also needed 2 breaks. I guess expecting the same level of fitness and capability as my old squad was a bit too much. Probably only Ambu or Junin squads will have a higher efficiency than us. Fujin and the Jennings were observing the area. There were clear signs of a fight happening at that place. Yasuoka observed the surroundings and said, "There are multiple broken carts here. Looks like the attack had taken place here." Kanai snorted in displeasure. Those cocky bandits didn't even bother to hide and cover up their actions. Fujin too wondered about that. That's weird. None of the dozens of bandit camps we cleared had such stupid bandits. It's as if they want to let others know that they created trouble. But why would a bandit group attract unwanted attention? The weirdness of the situation suddenly increased Fujin's alertness to the max. Kanai began observing the clues. He said, according to the clues. Seonk, however, Fujin interrupted him. Southwestern direction. About 1100 meters from here. Move quickly and quietly. The trio were surprised. They never thought that Fujin would be a censor as well. They immediately followed his instructions without any complaints or doubts. They moved over a kilometer in the direction that Fujin pointed before they could see the camp. Kanai was very surprised. He said softly, "First they left all the clues on the road, and they have a camp out in the open. Sure, it's in the forest, but there is no cover for them at all when someone finds them." Yasuoka and Tadao were confused too. The place had multiple small huts made of bamboo and leaves. They were spread over 100 meters and could probably hold around 60 bandits. There was no natural protection other than the forests. However, Fujin's attention was on something else. "Oh, I see. There is one ninja among this bandit group, and he seems to be at the Chunin level. Is he behind this stupidity, or is he scheming up something?" Fujin's eyes moved towards his temporary subordinates as he thought, having subordinates is kinda nice. "I'll let them test the waters. If it's just this guy, then I will assassinate him. If he is indeed cooking up some scheme, then they will be good meat shields. I'll stay back and observe what scheme is being cooked here. Sigh, they kinda seem good, unfortunately. This world is too dangerous. If something were to happen to them, then it's their own fault for being so weak." Fujin steeled his resolve. He said, "You guys begin the assault. Move quietly and eliminate as many as you before alerting the whole camp. I'll stay behind and observe in case there is anything fishy." Tadao, Yasuoka and Kane nodded and moved. They weren't aware that there was someone stronger than them among the bandits. Fujin stayed behind and observed them. In the central hut of the camp, a large man was relaxing on a rather comfortable deck chair. 2 slim ladies were round him, one massaging his shoulders and another his thighs. Both had scared looks on their face. The man grinned like a pervert while enjoying the treatment. Some other bandits in the room were looking at them lecherously. The man sitting in the chair was a Dainki. He was a Hothaded Chunin from Komogagakuka. Due to his Hothadedness, he killed a civilian and hence ended up in a prison. Fortunately for him, he was able to get out of prison due to special circumstances. A month ago in the Raikage office, an old man entered the Raikage's office and placed some documents in front of him. He was an elder in Komogagakuka. He said, "These are some reports that we received from the Land of Fire." Mabui took the reports and began reading. The 4th Raikage frowned. He asked, "Is Kanata up to something?" The old man shook her head and said, "No, this is related to their trade. In the past couple of months, their trade has suddenly boomed. If their trade continues to increase at this rate, then they will earn a lot of money, which they can use to train more ninjas." His frown deepened. He said, "Konoha controls the richest and the most fertile land in this world. If they begin growing rapidly, then their strength can once again surpass us. The old man nodded and said, yes, and if that happens, then war will have to be started again to prevent Konoha from getting too strong, though Minato died and Orochimaru betrayed them. Their strength is still quite strong. Some of their younger ninjas are gaining fame quickly. We need to ensure that Konoha's growth is at least slowed so that we don't have to go to another war. Az immediately became angry. He said, just a few years ago we could force them to hand over an elite Junin. And now they are becoming a threat again. However, the old man calmed him down. I would advise you not to make such a reckless move again, Lord Fourth. Konoha promoted a lot of Chunings to Junins in this period. More importantly, our spies have reported that Ayla is recovering its strength rapidly too. That fence-sitter is spending a huge amount of money on raising new ninjas. If Konoha decides to retaliate instead of being desperate for peace, then we could get in a pickle. Calmed down slightly, he asked, what do you suggest then? The old man said, according to my sources. Konoha's trade suddenly boomed as their bandits were killed at a rapid pace, so we should increase their bandit groups. I thought for a bit. He looked at Mobui and said, Mobui, see if we have any useful prisoners. We will release them and let them be rogue ninjas inside the Land of Fire and have them start more bandit groups. Mobui nodded and left to check their data. The old man said, well, Konoha doesn't have the strength to retaliate against us. It'll be better if we don't leave any clues behind. I nodded and said, yes, I know that. It'll be annoying if they retaliate with similar measures. Though if they do, I'll smash them all. Chapter 148. Be careful of explosions. Yasuoka, Tadao and Kane moved quietly. They began from one edge of the base. They silently entered a hut, killed everyone in it, and moved on to the next hut. They were quite successful and kept killing in this manner. It continued until one of the bandits who was moving towards the hut noticed something entering it very quickly. He quickly moved towards the hut. Tadao, who was killing the ones inside the hut, noticed a bandit coming in. He killed everyone and waited inside the hut to kill the incoming bandit. But the bandit never entered the hut. Instead, he stopped around 10 meters away from it. Tadao frowned. If he doesn't come in quickly, then the smell of the blood will spread. Tadao lost his patience and ran outside towards the bandit. The bandit noticed and screamed. Tadao cut his neck before he could finish. Unfortunately, that yell alerted everyone. However, they weren't worried. They had already killed over half the bandits. All three immediately hid behind the huts. They waited for the bandits to rush out. The scream had made all bandits rush out. Ki was displeased at being disturbed. He left his tent grumpily. As soon as the bandits exited the huts, they were ambushed. Another 10 bandits were killed. Fujin thought, not bad. These guys are neat. Anyways, there don't seem to be any traps here. Is it just a brainless rogue ninja? The remaining bandits were terrified. They prepared themselves for a fight. Ki screamed, Konoha scums, die! He immediately made a move towards Yasuoka. Yasuoka's eyes widened as he noticed that Ki had chakra. He immediately made hand signs, water release fish spit jutsu. Yasuoka spat a jet of water at Ki. However, Ki scoffed, water release, worthless. He made hand signs as well, lightning release lightning bolt jutsu. He extended his finger towards the incoming jet of water. A small bolt of lightning was released through his finger. It hit the jet of the water and traveled through it to Yasuoka. Yasuoka didn't expect it. The lightning hit him and shocked him. Though it didn't injure him critically, it made moving harder, and in combat. This alone was fatal. Ki smirked at seeing the terror on Yasuoka's face. He grabbed a kunai and ran towards Yasuoka. Tadao and Kunai noticed it as well and got very worried. They immediately killed the bandits in their path and moved towards Yasuoka. Unfortunately, they were too far away. Yasuoka's life flashed in front of his eyes as he saw Ki approaching him. He barely managed to grab a kunai and raise it. But his movements were very slow. Ki began swinging his kunai at Yasuoka when a vacuum bullet hit his forehead and pierced through it. His body was thrown behind by a couple of meters due to the momentum of the vacuum bullet. Yasuoka, who had almost given up on his life, was stunned. So were Tadao, Kane, and the bandits. The bandits immediately began running. Fujin had been sensing continuously but didn't find anyone else. So he decided to make a move. After all, losing a ninja on his first mission as a team leader won't look good. Tadao and Kane exchanged glances and thought, didn't he say that he only knew a bit of wind nature manipulation? Fujin, who was still alert, suddenly became very serious. He made a hand sign and yelled, move back. The trio were surprised. Tadao and Kane immediately moved backwards. Yasuoka was still struggling. Fujin's wind clone appeared behind him. He grabbed Yasuoka's collar and tossed him behind. At the same time, he extended his other arm towards Key. A spinning shield of wind appeared in front of the clone. Key's body suddenly exploded. The explosion burnt everything within a radius of 10 meters and sent dust and small pebbles flying for a long distance. The spinning shield of wind was destroyed as well, but no debris flew past it and hence Yasuoka was safe. However, Tadao and Kane were injured lightly by some pebbles, so were the bandits. Fujin frowned. He created 5 wind clones. 3 stayed around him, while the other 2 flickered towards the bandits and killed them all. Fujin thought, what the hell, did he carry 100 explosion tags to take revenge on the one who kills him? No, why would anyone do that? The more likely case is that someone used him as a booby trap. But who, and for what purpose? Fujin wasn't sure of his analysis. But it was on point. It had sent a few dozen prisoners to the Land of Fire. They were instructed to act as bandits, or else Kumo would come after them again. Every one of these ninjas had seals inscribed on their bodies, seals that would explode with a huge force after being killed. In order to ensure that they won't surrender, all of them were threatened with terrible consequences to either themselves or their loved ones, as target was to reintroduce uncertainty for trading caravans in the Land of Fire, and he would also hit Konoha's ninjas. Most of the prisoners he released could easily kill Genins. It'd be especially good if they killed younger Genins, and if they were killed by Chonins or Junins, then the explosion could have a slight chance to kill them as well, for Konoha, who had just begun recovering. Such a loss could be a setback. Unfortunately for, in this particular instance, his opponent was a ninja who loved his life too much to fall for such a trick. But if he was to learn of the disappointing performance of Ki, he wouldn't care much. Ki and his bandit group had already killed 3 trading caravans mercilessly. When this news spreads, it'll create panic among the traders, and they won't trust the Land of Fire to provide them with complete safety. Even after all the bandits were killed, Fujin didn't sense anyone. So he flickered on the nearest tree to the explosion and said, "Gather here." The trio nodded and began moving towards Fujin. The Genins now looked at Fujin in a new light. Without him, it was very likely that they might have not returned alive. Fujin created a shadow clone who gathered and stored whatever remained of Ki's body in a scroll. Fujin asked, "How are your injuries?" Yasuoka said, "I am fine. My body was restricted a bit by the electric shock. It has recovered." Tadao said, "I am fine too, just some scratches from the pebbles." Kanai said, "Same here." Fujin nodded. None of them had any serious wounds. Yasuoka asked, "Fujin, you are a sensor, right? Did you sense that ninja before we attacked?" Fujin shook his head and said, "No, I didn't sense any chakra from him. I guess either he knew how to suppress his chakra or had some sort of seal that allowed him to hide his chakra from sensors." Yasuoka's face became grim. If such events happened frequently, then their risk while doing rank C missions would increase exponentially. Both Tadao and Kane had grim faces too. Fujin understood why their faces were grim but didn't say anything. Fujin's shadow clone had stored the dead body and then gathered all the survivors in the camp. There were 8 young girls. All were very afraid due to their horrible experience and the gore around them. Fujin asked, "Are any of you good with first aid?" Kanai said, "Me." Fujin said, "All right, apply the necessary first aid to them. We will move away quickly." Kanai applied first aid to them and comforted them a bit. Seeing that they were Konoha ninjas, the girls relaxed slightly. The group moved away a few kilometers before setting up a camp to rest. They rested for the night and began the journey back to Konoha the next day. Since the civilian girls also traveled with them, the journey back took 1.5 days. After returning to Konoha, they handed the girls to the proper authorities and went straight to the mission center. Fujin reported the details of the mission to Shikiro. Shikiro was surprised. He said, "I didn't think that such a new bandit group would have such a strong ninja." He sighed in relief. "I am glad I chose Fujin, else some of them might have died." Shikiro had seen many of his classmates die. He didn't want to see more dying. He handed a paper to Fujin and said, "Fujin, as the team leader, you have to write the mission report. Please fill in the details in this form and describe how the mission went and any observations you made." Fujin nodded and took the form. Shikiro continued, "Since this mission involved a Chunin level ninja as the enemy, I will upgrade your mission to rank B. Your rewards will also be increased from 50,000 ryo to 500,000 ryo." Hearing that improved the moods of the Genins. With 10 times the rewards, they could afford to not take a mission for almost a year. They could perform safe rank T missions for some money if they needed it. Fujin took 200k ryo and gave the 3 100 ryo each. The 4 said farewells and left. Before leaving, Fujin looked at Shikiro and reminded him, Don't assign me to rank C missions again. Shikiro's eyes twitched. He said, this was a rank B mission. Fujin replied, it's not the same. If you assign me another rank C, I'll refuse to take it. Without waiting for his reply, Fujin left. Shikiro muttered, these kids are so annoying, and how can I even assign him to a rank B mission? Did Renjiro-sama not talk with him? Chapter 149 3 months of non-stop training. After returning home, Fujin began writing the report. He finished it before having dinner and meditated for a bit before sleeping. The next day, Fujin submitted the report and got back to training. He began practicing the vacuum bullet jutsu. He had 2 aims. The first was to decrease the amount of time needed to form and shoot the vacuum bullet. The second was to create 2 vacuum bullets at the same time. While Fujin was training, his report, along with a few others, landed on Hiruzen's table. Hiruzen's expression wasn't good. There were quite a few people in his office, and most were waiting for the thoughts of one person. Nara Shikaku said, it looks like someone isn't happy with the trade boom that we experienced recently. And seeing the jutsus used, these ninjas are most likely from Komogagakuka. I believe that Komogagakuka is using its prisoners to do this suicidal task. They should be unaware of the seals on their body. Hiruzen nodded. He too had reached the same conclusion. He asked, what do you suggest we do? Shikaku said, it's quite easy. We will analyze the data of bandit groups and see which bandit groups rose abruptly. We will dispatch ambush squads to crush those bandit groups. Junin squads who are moving out to perform rank A and ACE missions will also be tasked to clear out such bandit groups if they are near their route. Hiruzen nodded and said, all right, I'll hand the command of this mission to you, Shikoku. Clear them out. Shikoku thought, I analyzed the information and strategized so that you could assign them missions. Why are you handing me the command? Unfortunately, it wouldn't look good if he complained in front of so many people. So he agreed. In the next week, every single of these groups was eliminated by Shikaku with the help of Ambo, Root and Junins. Though A's goals were successful initially, they didn't affect Konoha much overall. After a week of training, Fujin analyzed, I managed to improve my control over the vacuum bullet and decrease the time needed to use it considerably, but I had no success at all in forming the second vacuum bullet. I guess Hiruzen was right, since he couldn't create another vacuum bullet at the same time. He decided, all right, from now on, I'll focus entirely on Fuin Jutsu. He created a shadow clone with 10% of his chakra. The clone flickered to the library. Fujin created a bunch of more clones. 4 of them split in 4 different directions and began and activated their chakra field. Fujin sensed the chakra fields and thought, I would have loved to master Fuin Jutsu at home, but my house doesn't have enough space for my clones. Oh well, it's not like my house can hide me from Byakugan or that perverted crystal ball. Besides, the training ground rarely has any visitors. The only 2 who visited me here so far are Renjiro and Tadao, so it should be safe. Anyways, if someone does see me, I'll just say that my grandpa asked me to learn it to prepare for Flying Thunder God Jutsu. Haha, my skill at Fuin Jutsu becoming public shouldn't have any effect on me now. Only the surprise element will be lost. While his clone went to the library, Fujin started with the finger carving seal. It was very easy, and he mastered it within a few minutes. He opened a scroll and summoned the items that will be needed to practice and waited while meditating. Library Fujin's shadow clone entered the B section of the library. He grabbed the advanced Fuin Jutsu theory and sealing tag scroll. He sat down and read how to create the sealing tag. He also checked the new symbols that he would have to learn to create it. After 15 minutes of careful reading, he made a hand sign. Shadow clone jutsu. A shadow clone appeared next to him. As soon as the new clone appeared, the new clone dispelled itself. As soon as the clone dispelled himself, Fujin received the memories. Knowing all the information needed to learn the sealing tag, Fujin made a hand sign. He used shadow clone jutsu repeatedly until he created 10 clones. He thought, this is my first time, so I'll limit myself to 10 clones. If my head is fine, I'll create more. Fujin and the 10 clones began creating the sealing tag individually. The 4 sensor clones kept an eye out for any intruders while the clone in the library began reading information on other seals. Fujin and his 10 clones practiced for half an hour. Fujin dismissed his clones. Memories of the clones rushed into his head, causing a small headache. Fujin thought, that wasn't bad. Working on the same thing reduces the impact of sudden memories. I can try with 15 this time. Fujin meditated for a few minutes to properly understand the gains of all 10 clones and combine all information into one. After 5 minutes, he began using shadow clone jutsu again. While making the clones, he thought, I need to get the multi-shadow clone jutsu. Creating them one by one is kinda tedious. That said, how do I ask Hiruzen or Renjiro for a forbidden jutsu? He thought for a bit but couldn't come up with anything reasonable. He thought, leave it, I'll ask when the opportunity presents itself. Till then, I will consider this as a form of training to master the shadow clone jutsu. I still can't do it without that last hand seal. Fujin continued learning Fuin jutsu in this manner. Eventually, he increased the number of shadow clones to 20 for 3 whole months. No one disturbed him. In these 3 months, Fujin managed to learn to create the explosion tag, ceiling tag, chakra suppression seal, barrier tag, 5 elements tag, cloth binding technique, silent seal, anti-Byakuden seal, anti-Sharingan seal, stealth seal, light absorption seal, training seal, resistance seal, gravity seal, and a bunch of other seals. While he didn't learn all the seals, he learnt enough to be able to replicate the meditation room from the tower. He also managed to create storage seals that can store living beings, and tested them with some rats. While he couldn't be considered a Fuin Jutsu master yet, he was very close. In these 3 months he also kept increasing the difficulty of his morning physical workout. He had increased the training seal's power to 68. In addition, he also practiced his ninjutsu once a week. During this period, Eiji contacted Fujin twice to view the 2 times when the Fuin Jutsu master that he invited inscribed seals on his house. Fujin observed the process carefully. He didn't recognize the Fuin Jutsu master, but the Fuin Jutsu master was definitely more skilled than him. However, Fujin recognized all the seals he inscribed. There wasn't any funny business. While Fujin made massive progress, one thought popped up often in his mind. Why am I not being called for any missions? I expected that I would be assigned to a few B-rank missions at least. After all, shouldn't wind element ninja be in demand in a village where most have the fire element? However, he never did anything about it. He was very happy with the progress he was making with Fuin Jutsu. Finally, Fujin's training in isolation was disturbed. While he was practicing a seal, a Chunin entered training ground 23. One of Fujin's clones sensed him and dispelled himself. Fujin and his clones received the memories. In a few seconds, all items were packed and stored in the scroll. Fujin kept the scroll back and dispelled his clones. The Chunin didn't realize that he was sensed. In a few seconds he arrived where Fujin was. Fujin saw him. He looked like in his late teens. The Chunin said, "Hey Fujin, I am Hatak Ryota. You have been assigned to our squad for a mission. Come with me." Fujin nodded and followed him. He dispelled his clones that were sensing. Fujin wondered, why exactly did I not get any mission for 3 months? Did Hiruzen spy on me learning Fuin Jutsu and decide to give me a break? But that doesn't sound like him at all. Fujin's analysis couldn't have been farther from the truth. 2 days ago in the Hokage office, Hiruzen asked, "Takao, can you tell me the status of Renjiro's students?" Takao answered, "I'll have to check Lord Hokage. I'll let you know later." Hiruzen nodded. A few hours later, Takao entered the Hokage office. Hiruzen saw that he had a rather strange expression. Takao said, "Lord Hokage, I checked the information about Renjiro's students. Hyuga Hoka joined a Chunin squad arranged by his father. He fulfills the typical Hyuga role in a squad. He is led in 7 rank C missions and participated in 3 rank B missions. Uchiha Miko joined the Uchiha police force. In addition, she is led in 3 rank C missions and participated in 5 rank B missions. Both Miko and Hoka have shown great promise." About Hiruzen was looking forward the most to Fujin's performance. But he wondered, what exactly did Fujin do for Takao to make such a strange face? Takao said, "Fujin has led in just 1 rank C mission about 2 weeks after that rank A mission. The mission got upgraded to rank B, but he completed the mission without any casualties. But after that he took no mission at all." Hiruzen was surprised. He didn't understand Fujin's behavior. He asked, "What has Fujin been doing?" Takao said, "I did some research. He booked training ground 23 for 9 months. He has been visiting it daily and spends most of his time there." Hiruzen said, "I can understand Fujin training. But why didn't he take any missions?" Takao said, "I am not sure." Hiruzen thought for a bit. Suddenly it hit him. He said, "Wait, don't tell me." Chapter 150, The Importance of Socializing. Takao saw Hiruzen. He wondered, what did Lord Hokage realize for him to be so surprised? Hiruzen thought, no wonder Fujin never did any mission. He never joined a team. From what Genki had said, Fujin stayed alone and never interacted much with others. Renjiro noted the same thing and said that Fujin preferred being and acting alone. So Fujin has no contacts outside his small bubble of friends, and most of those friends are still in their genin squad or in the academy. He shouldn't be in touch with any chunins other than maybe his academy teachers, and since he is an orphan, no one arranged for him to enter a squad. And with both his teammates being from big clans who were arranged in squads by their families, he was left with no one to make a team with. Hiruzen said, "Takao, call Soritori Tomatis to my office." Takao nodded and left the office. Hiruzen sighed. Rinjuro didn't teach that kid to socialize. And Fujin didn't even approach anyone about it. If he had visited the mission center a few times and let others know about his wind release capabilities, lots of teams would have extended an invitation to him. Even if no one invited him, at least he could have improved his leadership skills by clearing out the rank C missions. Instead, he just chose to not do any missions at all. Hiruzen analyzed a few more things. In the end, he decided, I need to keep checking on Fujin's progress every month. While he isn't as talented as Minato or Orochimaru, he is still good. It'll be a waste if he loses interest due to not doing any missions and only training. Back to the present, Ryota led Fujin to Yakiniko. Fujin asked, shouldn't we be going to the mission center? Ryota replied, not really. Meet up with the team first. We will accept the mission officially tomorrow. Fujin wasn't sure what Ryota was up to, but he followed him in. Ryota led him to a table where 3 other people and a dog were sitting. Fujin observed them. One of them was overdressed. Fujin noticed some bugs buzzing around him. Fujin concluded that he was from the Iburami clan. Another was a definite Inuzuka. He was in his late teens as well. A huge ferocious-looking dog lay behind him. The dog noticed Fujin's gaze and stared back at him. The last person looked to be in his mid-20s. His face had a large burn mark. There were multiple scars on his arms as well. Of the 4 people in this team, his chakra was the highest. The scar-faced guy looked at Fujin and smiled. He said, so you are Fujin. I have heard a lot of good things about you. Come sit. Fujin sat down and said, I wonder who spoke about me. He chuckled. It was Lord Hokage. Fujin wondered. What is that old fox up to? The scar-faced guy said, let us introduce ourselves properly. I am Soritori Tomatis. I am an elite chunin and the leader of this group. I specialize in fire release. The other members of the group began introducing themselves. Ryota said, as I said, I'm Hatak Ryota. I am a chunin and I specialize in earth release. The man sitting with the dog said, I am Inuzuka Tadashi. This is my partner Kenta. I am a chunin too. I am responsible for scouting, tracking and smelling danger. I specialize in taijutsu and I can use a few fire jutsus as well. Kenta barked at Fujin as if to say hello. The last member, who was very quiet, said in a neutral tone, I am Iburami Katsumi. I am a chunin. I am responsible for scouting, tracking and trapping enemies. I can use some water jutsus. Fujin heard them carefully and remembered their specialties. Tomatis said, our team lacks explosive power, so we were looking for someone who specialized in wind release. That way, we could use a fire-wind combination jutsu. Unfortunately, ninjas with good control over wind manipulation are very rare in Konoha. That's why. When Lord Hokage recommended you, I agreed. So Fujin, would you like to join our squad? Fujin was a bit surprised. He asked casually, I can refuse. Tomatis chuckled and said, of course you can. I can't force you to follow us. Ha ha ha. Fujin nodded and asked, can you tell me how teams work? Like how many missions you do? What are the rules or common practices of your group? I haven't been a part of any team before, so I don't know much about this. Tomatis answered, you don't need to worry much, Fujin. We are very casual. So there are no strict rules as such. The most important thing is to give your all in the mission and maintain good teamwork. Also, never abandon your teammates. If you are found slacking or putting your teammates at risk, then we won't keep you in the team anymore. Of course, the same applies to the rest of us too. Fujin nodded. What Tomatis said was basic. Tomatis continued, as for missions, we only do rank B missions. We take them continuously with a few days break between missions depending on how tired we are after the missions. The reward money is equally divided among all team members. When you are a part of the team, all your rank B missions will be with us. You can take up missions with other teams only if we take a long break. I wouldn't recommend wasting time on rank C or D missions. But you can take them on your own on rest days if you want. The only exception would be if Lord Hokage assigns you on a separate mission or if you get invited for a rank A mission. In that case, give preference to those missions. Of course, let us know that you'll be busy on those missions if possible. Fujin thought for a bit and concluded, that's very reasonable. Tomatis asked, so, do you want to be a part of our team, Fujin? Fujin replied, sure, I would like to be a part of your team. he sighed and said. Besides, I haven't been assigned any mission for 3 months. So I don't really have any other choices. On hearing Fujin, Ryota, Katsumi and Tadashi had weird expressions, Tomatis had an idea. He said, Fujin, you're aware that you have to form a team and then go to the mission center to get missions, right? Fujin looked at him and raised an eyebrow. He asked, what do you mean? He said, you get missions only if you go to the mission center with a team. Fujin was surprised. He thought, what the heck? I recall Hiruzen and Tsunade sending messages when they had to assign missions. I thought that job is done by mission center here instead. He asked, are you sure? Tomatis replied, yes, you will be called only if Lord Heikage has a special mission for you, and usually, only elite Junins get missions assigned that way. Fujin was stunned. He exclaimed internally, fuck, no wonder I never got any missions. Fujin's new squad chuckled at his expression. Tomatis didn't want Fujin to feel embarrassed on day one. He said, introduce yourself, Fujin. Fujin sighed again and said, I am Suzuki Fujin. I specialize in wind jutsus. I am also a censor, so I could aid Tadashi-san and Katsumi-san a bit. Tomatis said, good. Also, no need to be formal with us, Fujin. Just use our names. Fujin nodded. All right. At that time, a waiter came in and delivered meat. Tomatis said, let's celebrate getting a new team member. The group began eating while chatting casually. At one point, Fujin asked, Tomatis, how do you become an elite Chunin? Is there an exam similar to the Chunin exam? Tomatis said, no, there is no exam. You get assigned this rank by doing missions. The missions that you complete are analyzed by the village. When they are satisfied with your performances, they promote you to elite Chunin. Fujin was surprised. He asked, on what parameters do they decide? Tomatis replied, well, the basic requirements are your strength and overall capability. If you have any obvious weakness, you won't be promoted to elite Chunin. Once you meet those requirements, they check your mission record. There are no fixed criteria regarding the missions, so I can't comment on what parameters they check here, but it'd be safe to say that you need to have completed at least 50 rank B missions. Fujin thought and said, oh, thank you. Tomatis smiled and said, no worries. There are a couple more things that you should know about elite Chunins. Other villages aren't as strict as Konoha while promoting to Junins, so most elite Chunins from Konoha can go up against Junins of other villages. So don't expect to be promoted quickly. Also, if you want to be promoted to Junin or special Junin ranks, then you first need to be an elite Chunin. Otherwise you won't be considered for Junin promotions. Fujin nodded. He had expected that. After eating the food, Tomatis said, I have already accepted a mission. Tomorrow, we will escort a noble from the land of rice back to his country, meet up at the gate at 11 am, and bring enough supplies for a couple of months. Fujin and the others nodded and left after leaving. Fujin headed back to the training ground. Chapter 151. The first mission with a new squad. En route, Fujin thought, so that's why I never got assigned a mission again. Sire, at least someone should have said something to me. I guess Tomatis's words indirectly came from Hiruzen. That said, even if I did know this, I don't have connections with any Chunins. It's the same issue that I concluded while going on the mission with Yasuoka and the rest. Just going around advertising my wind jutsu capabilities would have been stupid, after all. Who knows what squad I'd join up with? I guess the only choices available were to ask Renjiro or Hiruzen to assign me to a team. It's probably what Hiruzen did. That said, not having any connections is kinda an issue. I didn't give much thought to this earlier as this is the world of the strong. As long as I keep working hard and reach the top, everyone would be trying to create a relationship with me. But reaching such a level will need a lot of time, and I might need aid along the path. At the very least, the help I got from Renjiro was critical. And unlike Hiruzen, it was a selfless act from him. Sai, I will have to interact more with other ninjas. While I won't ever need as much aid as Renjiro gave me, I will need to have connections in order to make different sorts of teams depending on missions. Still, how do I do that? It's not like I can hang around and drink alongside them, can I? Leave it, no point in acting desperate. I'll just make connections as I get opportunities in the future. Anyways, it's not an issue to not have done any missions in the last 3 months. These months have improved my skill with Fuin Jutsu a lot. I have learnt all the important seals. In terms of effectiveness, I should be on par with seal masters. I'll probably need a couple more months to learn all the remaining seals, but I think it'll be better to stop for now. I should practice the seals I have learnt for some time. After all, it's very unlikely that Hiruzen would give me the scroll for Flying Thunder God so soon. Fujin trained with his shadow clones to practice his ninjutsu, kenjutsu, and taijutsu for a few hours. The next day, Fujin began moving towards Konoha's entrance gate. He thought, Land of Rice. I hope I don't end up encountering Orochimaru. Encountering Kakuzuas was plenty of excitement for a few years. Fujin gathered with his new squad at the gate. Tamata said, our client will arrive here in a few minutes. I'll brief you on the situation. The Land of Rice had been peaceful after the Third Great Ninja War, but in the last few years, there have been many turbulences in the Land of Rice. Many rogue attacks have been reported. Many nobles are targeted too, even their daimyo's retinue was targeted once, so we have to be very careful during this mission. Tadashi, you will be responsible for smelling any possible attackers. Katsumi and Fujin, you two will back him up. Ryota, you will be responsible for keeping our client safe. You will cooperate with his bodyguard. I will be responsible to attack any attackers. Tadashi will assist me, and Katsumi will provide long-range support. Fujin, for this mission, only observe us. If you get an opportunity, you can attack. Fujin nodded. The arrangement was reasonable as he would need some time to fit into their team. Dematis briefed his team on a few matters until two men arrived at the gate. The younger man was a blonde wearing an expensive robe. The older man dressed as a ninja and had a similar mask to Kakashi. Two swords could be seen on his back. They greeted Dematis as they interacted with him on the previous day. After discussing for a bit, they left. The young noble and his protector walked at the center. Tadashi, Kenta and Dematis walked in front of them. Fujin walked to their right and Ryota to their left. Katsumi handled the rear. The group took 7 days to reach the border between the Land of Fire and the Land of Rice. They didn't encounter any troubles on the way. On reaching the border, the protector said, we have been experiencing a lot of rogue attacks in the last year. We will need to travel another day and a half. Please be on guard and protect us. Dematis replied. Don't worry, we are always alert. The group continued moving. After a few hours, Inuzuka Tadashi stopped and said, there are 3 scents at this location. Someone was here not long back. Dematis looked at Fujin and Aburumi Katsumi. Fujin activated his chakra field. Some bugs appeared around Katsumi and spread in the forest. Fujin said, no one in 1 kilometer radius around us. Fujin chakra field could sense up to 1.25 kilometers. But he decided to report only 1 kilometer. In the future, if someone became aware of Fujin's capabilities and decided to hide just outside his stated range, then they would lose their element of surprise. Dematis nodded and looked at Katsumi. After a few minutes, Katsumi said, no one is hiding around us. Dematis instructed, have your insects keep a watch. If those guys are planning trouble for us, then they might appear soon. Katsumi nodded and let his bugs fly around the group. The group continued walking for another kilometer. Some distance ahead of the group, 4 ninjas were waiting on a tree. One of them said, boss, that noble called Kobe Takuma should be traveling on this route soon. But he should be escorted by Konoha ninjas. Should we attack? Before he could answer, another guy said, let's attack them and even kill Konoha ninjas. That way we will become famous throughout the Land of Rice. The third guy also wanted to attack, so their leader agreed and said, we will attack and kill them all. Hide properly. We will launch a sneak attack and kill them before they even understand what's happening. All 4 dispersed in different directions and got in position. Unknown to them, their small meeting was conducted under the surveillance of a few bugs. Katsumi spoke without giving any signs of tension. Don't react. 4 rogue ninjas are planning an ambush ahead. About 1.5 kilometers from here. Dematis asked, how strong are they? Katsumi replied, not sure. Guessing at tuning level, Dematis instructed, all right. Keep moving this way. When we are close, Katsumi and Tadashi will attack. Ryota and Fujin will defend. Fujin, don't sense them. No one replied to Dematis, and the group kept moving forward. The noble and his bodyguard were tense but didn't show it. They were already prepared to get attacked. Round 500 meters from the ambush spot, Tadashi said, I can smell them. Katsumi said, my bugs have passed me their location as well. Dematis said, good, attack as soon as you can. The group walked until they were just 100 meters from the ambush spot. Suddenly, Tadashi, Kenta and Katsumi disappeared. They moved stealthily through the forest towards the ones waiting and hiding. Fujin's eyes glowed as he observed them. He checked the ambushers and thought, Chunnings, at max those guys are Jennings. Only one has Chunin level chakra reserves. Tadashi and his dog were faster. They reached their opponent first. Their opponent didn't see them until the last moment. When he heard something and checked behind him, Tadashi stuck his kunai into his back while Kenta bit his throat. Another attacker was a few meters away from Tadashi. He was shocked at seeing one of them being killed so quickly. He shouted to alert others and grabbed his weapon. However, Tadashi and Kenta suddenly began spinning, man-beast taijutsu fang over fang. The ninja hadn't seen such a technique before. Both Tadashi and Kenta hit him. Their claws ripped his throat. Both stopped and looked at their victims and thought they were only Jennings. On the other side of the road, Katsumi watched from a distance as his bugs devoured one of his opponents. The last remaining member of this group was their leader. He was terrified by the screams of his underlings on the other side and the bugs eating one of his men in front of him. He began making hand signs in a panic when Katsumi said, "Give up, your death is a certainty." He was humiliated but kept making hand signs. Suddenly he felt something bite his chest. The tense situation made him ignore the pain. But suddenly his hands and legs trembled. His knees fell to the ground. Katsumi said, "You shouldn't fight when your clothes are full of my poisonous bugs." The enemy fell to the ground. He could see some bugs crawling out of his shirt. Tomatis appeared behind Katsumi and asked, "Is it done?" Katsumi said, "Yes, looks like only he was at the tuning level, though it's doubtful that someone like him can have a bounty." Tomatis said, "Even if he doesn't, we can use his head to improve relations with the daimyo slightly, so collect it." Katsumi nodded and stored his head in a scroll. The group continued their journey, chapter 152 boring. As the group proceeded ahead, they were attacked again on 2 occasions. However, in both instances, all enemies were killed without Fujin getting any chance to fight. Fujin wondered, are there so many rogue ninjas in this country? Or is Orochimaru trying to influence the environment here? After all, he shouldn't be able to create a hidden village while the daimyo still exists. Then again, for him to kill off a daimyo in secret shouldn't be much of an issue. Fujin wasn't able to arrive at any conclusion, so he dropped the thought. On the day after, they reached the location and completed the mission. Without waiting, the Konoha team left back for Konoha. As they were running on branches, Tomatis asked, "So Fujin, how did you feel this mission was?" Fujin answered, "Well, it was kinda boring." Tomatis laughed at that answer. He said, "Yeah, most missions are boring. If we have exciting missions all the time, then we won't live for long." Fujin thought, "Yeah, that's true. Still, this is very boring." Ryota said, "Most rank B missions are like these. Our missions get interfered with by rogue Jennings and Chunnings. They are very easy to kill off." Tomatis added, "If the missions involve rogue Junins or ninjas from another major village, then it'll be categorized as rank A or S, or the Ambu will handle them." Fujin nodded and said, "Yeah, that makes sense." Tomatis said, "Don't worry, I'll give you a more active role in future missions." Fujin smiled and thanked him. However, internally he sighed. What's the use of having an active role against such enemies? They will die without even seeing me. It's fine for now, but I will need to find a way to get better missions after I'm done with my training plans. The team returned to Konoha without any issues and divided the rewards equally. They had a group dinner before leaving for home. Tomatis asked the group to meet again in the mission center. After a week, Fujin began meditating after reaching home when he heard a knock on his door. He wondered, who'd come to visit at this time? He opened the door to see a familiar face. That person worked in Eiji's shop. He said, "Fujin-kun, the work on your house is completed. Eiji-sama wants to show it to you tomorrow at 9 am. Fujin replied, "Oh, that's great. I'll be there, thank you." The messenger nodded and left. Fujin thought, kinda convenient that it got completed today, right after my mission was completed. The next day, Fujin headed to the land he bought after completing his morning workout. When Fujin reached, he saw his new house. Fujin thought, "Wow, this looks great." The house in front of him was 3 stories high. It was circular in shape and was quite huge. A circular fence was built around the house. The rest of his land still had trees, making the surrounding of the house look great. While Fujin was admiring his house, Eiji arrived. He asked, "Are you lost in its beauty?" Fujin chuckled and said, "You have done a great job, old man." Eiji chuckled and handed him a key and said, "I finished constructing it 3 days ago, but it seems like you were out on a mission." Fujin thought, "Oh, was that guy checking my old house every night then?" He nodded and said, "Yes, I returned yesterday evening." Eiji said, "Let me show you the house from the inside." Fujin took the key and entered the house. The ground floor was huge. After entering the house, there was a circular room on the left. It had a big round table at the center along with multiple sofas between the table and the wall. In addition, this floor had a kitchen and a couple of washrooms. At the center of the floor there was a circular staircase. The remaining space on this floor was open. Eiji had placed a dining table, a few seats, and a few flower pots in proper positions to add to the aesthetics. After checking the ground floor, Fujin decided to check the floors above. the area of the floors above decreased successively. The first floor had 5 rooms, while the second had 3. On top was an open terrace. On both the first and the second floor, 1 room each had proper furniture to be considered a bedroom. The remaining rooms were empty. Fujin saw his house and commented, "Now that's money well spent." That said, I have no use for most of these rooms for now, but it's good to have some extra space in case I need it for some reason in the future. Anyways, I should check the important stuff now. Fujin and Eiji moved down the stairs to the basement. The basement had 2 floors too. If these 2 floors were included as well, then Fujin's house was a 5-story house. The first basement floor had very little space around the staircase. There was a 2 feet wide circular passage around the staircase. On the other side of this circular passage were 8 rooms. Fujin checked the rooms and all were built very well. All the rooms were completely empty, other than having a few lights and some wire extensions in case Fujin decided to add some electronics in the rooms. Lastly, they moved to the bottom floor of the basement. In complete contrast to the floor above, this basement floor was completely open. There were only a few pillars on this floor to support the house above, but other than the pillars, nothing existed on this floor. Eiji said, "As you had asked, this floor is completely open, and everything here is extremely sturdy and strengthened even further by the Seal Master." Fujin nodded and built his chakra up. Wind release breakthrough jutsu. Fujin suddenly exhaled a strong stream of wind from his mouth. The wind moved rapidly and hit all the pillars and the walls. Not a scratch appeared. Eiji, who was standing next to Fujin, was surprised. The high-speed winds crashed into the walls and some part of it was reflected back at them. He found it very difficult to stand steady. He said loudly, "What are you doing?" Fujin chuckled and waved his hand. He used Gale Palm Jutsu to quiet down the winds. He said, "Great work, though that was one of my weaker jutsus. This room is very sturdy. Thanks again," Eiji grudgingly said. "All right. But don't try to kill me again." Fujin chuckled. Eiji said, "I have made the house according to our plan and even placed furniture as you asked. If you need anything in the future or want furniture for the remaining rooms, you can come to my shop." Fujin nodded. Eiji left the house, leaving Fujin alone in his new house. Fujin saw Eiji out and then checked his house once again. This time, he concentrated chakra in his eyes and inspected everything. After half an hour, he concluded, "All right, I know I am being overly cautious. But there doesn't seem to be anything wrong in the house, and all the walls are as sturdy as Eiji promised them to be. Anyways, now that I have my house, I can finally start my plans. But first I need to clean the house." As Fujin thought that, the wind began gathering around him. The wind gently flew through his entire house. It gathered most of the dust and soil and left his house. Then Fujin created as many shadow clones as he could, and they all cooperated to clean the home properly. When his house became very clean, Fujin closed the door and began inscribing seals on his new house. During the last 3 months, Fujin had debated a lot on whether or not to cover his house in seals. After a lot of analysis, he concluded the pros and cons of it. He concluded, "If I don't inscribe my new house with seals, then my Fuin Jutsu capabilities can stay a secret for long. That's the only plus point. On the flip side, my house could be checked by any passing Hyuga. If my luck is bad or someone decides to spy on me, then my training of lightning release and other stuff that I plan to keep a secret could be exposed. On the other hand, if I inscribe seals in my house, then my skills at Fuin Jutsu will be exposed very easily. I could lie that I had hired a seal master while building the house, but I can't be sure how long that lie would last. Furthermore, others might think that I have something to hide and might get more interested in my house. As for the positives, seals would secure my house, and I can do all the shit I want without worrying about the n number of sensory abilities in this world." After analyzing both scenarios, Fujin decided, "I'll cover my house in as many seals as I can. I'll eventually have to expose my ability in Fuin Jutsu anyways. So might as well do it now. If Hirizen or Renjuro ask me, I'll tell them that I used the shadow clone trick and instead pass hints to them that I need the multi-shadow clone jutsu. As for the rest, I'll just give some lame excuses." Chapter 153: When a Psycho Becomes a Seal Master. Fujin spent the entire day inscribing seals in his house. He started with the anti-Bi Kugan, anti-Sharingan and stealth seals. He followed it up by using seals to strengthen the doors, walls and pillars even more, and also used seals to increase their resistance to fire, wind, lightning and water. When he was satisfied with the protection that his house provided, he went to the basement and entered one of the rooms. Fujin observed this room and thought, "The dimensions of this room are exactly as the meditation room in that tower." Fujin opened the scroll where he had recorded the details of that room. He inscribed all those seals in his room and recreated that room. Fujin thought, great, now I just have to buy those incense sticks and candles, then this will be the only room where I meditate. Fujin checked all the seals again to confirm that everything was fine. He left the room and used the finger carving seal to write meditation room on the door. Fujin then went into the room on the opposite side. This one had a lot of holes in the walls. Fujin inspected them properly and thought, I'll need to buy the proper tools to make this similar to the training room for dodging. I'll do that tomorrow. Fujin used his finger carving seal to write the name on the door and moved into another room. This room was completely empty. Even light bulbs weren't present. Fujin inscribed a few seals on the walls to produce light. Once there was sufficient light, Fujin began inscribing gravity seals on the floor. After some time, he analyzed. Gravity seals have been inscribed evenly in this room. The gravity in this room is approximately 2-5 times as compared to the outside. Combined with my training seal, this place would be good to practice my taijutsu forms and do weight training, and I can increase the gravity by inscribing more gravity seals on the floor. But first I should isolate this room properly. The increase in gravity in this room shouldn't affect the rest of the rooms, and it shouldn't damage the structural integrity of the house. It would suck if my new house just collapsed. That aside, in the future, I should experiment with whether I can combine the meditation room and gravity room. I wonder if that would help me meditate and condition my body at the same time. After all, I kinda have been having a feeling that in the future I will need to meditate a lot. Fujin decided to experiment with it later. He currently didn't have the expertise to create such a room, as the design for the meditation room was copied and not created by him. Fujin made a hand sign. It deactivated all the gravity seals he had inscribed in the room. Fujin began inscribing anti-gravity and isolation seals around the gravity room. He had to check multiple times. After some time, he was satisfied. The increased gravity in the gravity room was successfully isolated and wouldn't have any effect on the rest of the house. Fujin analyzed, after I buy the tools, I will have these 3 rooms ready for use. As for the other 5 rooms, I haven't decided anything yet. I would have loved to make wind, lightning and fire training rooms. Unfortunately, the elemental crystals aren't accessible to me yet. Even if they were, I am guessing that I would need a lot of them. Oh well, time for the 5 seal barrier. Fujin summoned 5 papers and laid them on the floor. The papers were brown in color and almost looked like the trunk of a tree. He grabbed a brush and made his chakra flow through it. He wrote forbidden on each of the 5 papers. He made a hand seal, and all 5 words disappeared. Fujin looked at the papers and thought, Fian Jutsu is strange. Such a simple seal can defend against freaking S-rank jutsus. Unfortunately, the other 4 seals can't be placed inside the house. Otherwise, this seal would be completely broken. Fujin wrote not at home on one of the papers and attached it to his door. The remaining 4 papers he attached to the trees around the house. After the papers were attached, they were almost invisible to the naked eye. Fujin made a hand seal. The chakra that could be sensed from the papers became suppressed as well. He thought, perfect, even Bi Kugan will have a tough time locating them now. Fujin walked to the front of his house. He formed a fist and concentrated chakra. He punched the door with full force. Fujin saw the result and exclaimed, excellent. As he had expected, there wasn't even a dent in the door. He thought, this should keep the home safe during Orochimaru's invasion. I wonder if it can withstand the Shirna Tensei as well. I'm guessing that it won't. Fujin made a hand seal and deactivated the seal. He pulled the paper off and carried it back home. He began making more tags. He created 64 barrier tags. He installed them at appropriate locations inside his house. Once that was done, Fujin thought, barrier tag isn't as strong as the 5 seal barrier, but it can still take a couple of Biank jutsus anymore, and it will need to be provided with chakra. But this is enough for my needs. This will ensure that no one can sneak into my house. And it will also alert me, so barrier tags when I'm at home will be plenty. When I'm not at home, the 5 seal barrier will be up. With the barriers set up, Fujin began wondering whether he could use any more seals to make his house more secure. If someone knowledgeable in Fuin Jutsu was to inspect Fujin's house, they would freak out. They would wonder which lunatic inscribed the seals. On top of the seals inscribed by the seal master, while constructing the house, Fujin had inscribed over 1,000 seals in his house. Even the Hokage building didn't have so many seals. Fujin couldn't think of anything else, so he began checking his scrolls. Soon he found the one he was looking for. He made a hand sign and 2 items appeared in front of him. They were an incense stick and some wax from a candle. Fujin lit both of them on fire and inspected them properly. he thought. I memorized their appearance and smell. Ow, which shop sells these? Fujin left his house, locked the door and put up the not at home sign. He had a meal and then began searching through Konoha's stores. Fujin searched various stores that sold ninja weapons and tools without any luck. Finally he found one. It was a multi-story shop that sold ninja tools and was very close to the Heikage building. Fujin bought a few meditation mats and a lot of those incense sticks and candles. He also bought a lot of training equipment to be placed in the gravity room. While checking the store, he also found the equipment and blunt wooded weapons needed for the dodging room and bought them as well. After that, Fujin bought groceries, utensils and other necessary items for his house. He also took all the items that he needed from his old house, vacated it and completed the formalities and procedures related to it. By the evening, Fujin's new house was set. Fujin exhaled in relief. I forgot how much work it is to change residence. When I left the orphanage, I didn't own anything and barely had any necessities. Anyways, pretty much everything is set. The only remaining task is setting up the equipment and mechanisms in the dodging room. I'll do that tomorrow. Fujin entered the meditation room and began meditating. He opened his eyes after 3 hours of meditation. A smile could be seen on his face. He thought, excellent. This room is a total success. Happy with his work, Fujin went to sleep in his new cozy bedroom. The next day, Fujin made a change to his training routine. He cut the morning physical training in the training ground from 4 hours to 3 hours. That last 1 hour, he spent training in the gravity room. He spent the remaining day setting up all the mechanisms in the dodging room. He tested the room a few times and had to make some changes until he was satisfied. Fujin thought, I think I can improve the efficiency of this room even more. Right now, I depend on my eyes and ears to sense incoming weapons and dodge. Once I'm able to dodge all weapons consistently, I will begin attempting it with my eyes closed. When I'm able to do that, I will use the silent seal to eliminate all noise. That should help improve my instincts. Anyways, all the plans that I had are completely implemented. Only one last thing to Chapter 154 Party. Fujin left the basement and got on the ground floor. He opened a scroll and summoned a very long cloth. Fujin began inscribing some seals on the cloth. After some time, Fujin made a hand sign. Cloth binding jutsu. The cloth began moving around the staircase. Soon, it covered up the way down to the basement completely. The remaining cloth kept rolling over it to form multiple layers. The staircase and the basement below became completely invisible. Fujin made a hand seal and the cloth began hardening. Fujin walked towards it and stepped on it. He moved around on the cloth and analyzed. Excellent, it looks and feels just like the rest of the floor now. Fujin spread his chakra field and tried to sense the basement. But he couldn't, he smiled. Now even sensors can't sense it. Though I guess someone like Renjiro can still find it. After all, he never said how he found the hiding spots of those Kiri ninjas. Anyways, it's fine. It's not like I really need to hide anything there. The main purpose of this is just distraction. In the future, if I'm suspected of doing anything fishy, then Konoha is sure to check my house. They will waste a lot of effort to check my house and find nothing in here at all, and it'll let me know that I'm being suspected and I can preemptively take some precautionary measures. Of course, until then, I can keep improving my seals even more and make the defenses even sturdier. How fun it'd be if I can have half a dozen types of barriers and a few dozen traps in my home, and all that to hide nothing. Fujin laughed at that thought. He calmed down thinking, anyways, now that the house is ready, I should call a few people in. Miko and Hoka had asked me to invite them, and I can invite Renjiro as well. Should I invite others? Who all? I can invite Genki, though he would probably not like to be among kids. I should also invite Teru, Yuri and Hana, but probably best to not have them alongside Renjiro. As for my new team, I have just met them, so probably not a good idea to invite them right now. I could mention it after the next mission. So in what order to invite? Fujin thought for a bit and decided, I'll invite my old team first, then I can invite Hoka again to hang alongside our classmates. Genki I'll call later. Fujin made 3 shadow clones. The first one flickered towards the Senju clan compound, the other 2 waited for a bit and left for Uchiha and Hyuga clan compounds. The clone headed to the Senju clan reached first. Unfortunately, Renjiro was out on a mission. The clone passed a message about his new house and left. He searched for Teru's house and invited him. He chatted for a bit with Teru and dispelled himself. The memories of the clone were transferred to Fujin and other clones. The other clones had reached the respective compounds but didn't enter till they received the memories. Since Renjiro wasn't available, they invited Miko, Hoka, Yuri and Hana. After Fujin received their memories, he thought, "That's surprising. All are available for tomorrow. Luckily I bought a lot of snacks. Oh well, let's see how my first time playing host in this world goes. Unfortunately no video games here. I should buy some board games and cards though. Might be handy if I decide to keep interacting in the future." Fujin created a couple of clones. One went to Genki and invited him to visit in the evening. The other clone went to civilian shops and bought some games. The next day, Fujin once again began his day with the new morning workout routine. At 9 am, he went out to buy chicken. He made a shadow clone and went to the meditation room. The clone washed the chicken and left it to marinate with salt, turmeric powder, red chili powder, ginger garlic paste and lemon juice. At noon, Fujin's friends began arriving. Senju Teru was the first one to reach. Fujin welcomed him home. Teru said, "Long time no see. I was surprised to see you yesterday." Fujin nodded and said, "Yup, one of the reasons why I thought it'd be fun to get together." Teru asked, "Who else is coming?" Fujin answered, "Hoka, Yuri, Hana and Miko." Teru asked, "Who is Miko?" Fujin answered, "She was on the same Genin team as me and Hoka." Teru and Fujin chatted about their life after leaving the academy till others arrived. They sat in the circular room with the round table. Fujin had already arranged snacks on the table. They chatted, while Fujin's clone served them fried chicken. Hana commented, "This is delicious, Fujin. I didn't know you were such a good cook." Teru agreed with her. "Yeah, this is good." Fujin said, "Thanks. I'm glad you guys liked it." Teru looked at Fujin and asked, "So Fujin, how did you manage to buy such a huge house? Aren't they expensive?" Hoka added, "Yes, this house is bigger than my house, and Fujin lives alone here." Fujin answered, "It wasn't very expensive as it is towards the outskirts of the village. Most of the money came from mission rewards." Yuri asked, "Mission rewards? I have been doing missions for a year longer than you. I have completed 19 rank B missions and still don't have that kind of money." Fujin chuckled and said, "We did 3 rank A missions with our sensei." Yuri was riled up. "What? 3 rank A missions? How? I haven't been to even one." Miko laughed and teased him. "That's right, Yuri. And of those 3, we did 2 back-to-back." Teru sighed and said, "You guys lucked out by getting Rinjiro-sama as your sensei. He's a badass." Yuri snorted and said, "Who cares about that? I bet I can beat all 3 of you by myself." That pissed Miko off. She yelled, "Fasted, what did you say?" Yuri replied, "You heard me." Miko activated her Sharingan, stood up and said, "I'll take you on one-on-one right here." Yuri also activated his Sharingan, stood up and said, "Try me. You aren't the only one with Sharingan." Fujin thought. So he activated his Sharingan too. Fujin coughed. Miko and Yuri looked at him. He said, "I just built this house. If either of you fights, I'm tossing you both out." Both calmed down a bit. They didn't want to ruin a new house. The others chuckled at their reaction. Fujin grinned and said, "Besides, if you want to fight, then I have booked the training ground closest to here. Let's go and check Yuri's claim there." He thought, "Why did I even bother buying board games? The best way to build a bond in this world is to fight. Well, other than using talk no jutsu." Teru chuckled and asked, "You booked a training ground. Did you anticipate that Yuri would start a fight?" Fujin said, "Not really. I booked a training ground for a few months." Hana was surprised. She asked, "A few months?" Fujin said, "You guys use your clan grounds for training. I don't really have that option." Teru said, "Still, a training ground for a month would cost around 75,000 ryo. That's almost worth 1 rank B mission. Are you sure you aren't secretly loaded?" Fujin. They began moving towards the training ground. Fujin said, "Well, I did win a few million ryo by gambling some time back, so training ground costs aren't really an issue." The group was surprised. Miko furrowed her eyebrows and nagged, "Fujin, you are gambling. Have you been wasting your time and risking your money and gambling after our team was disbanded?" Fujin was surprised. He stared back at Miko. After a few seconds, he commented, "You are taking after your mother well." Miko's face immediately became red. She looked away. Fujin said, "And no, I gambled before our team disbanded." Hoka asked, "When?" Fujin smiled and said, "During the tune-in exams." Hoka and Miko took a few seconds to realize. Both their eyes widened as they looked at Fujin. They said, "You didn't." Fujin chuckled and didn't reply. Yuri asked, "You didn't what?" Hana realized it as well as she said, "You bet on yourself during the tune-in exams." Fujin replied, "Bingo, I bet most of my money on myself." Miko cursed, "Asshole, we were participating in it too." Even Hoka was displeased. Fujin chuckled and said, Sorry, but it was kinda good money, both snorted. Soon, they arrived at the training ground. Yuri looked at the destruction around him and asked, "Did a hurricane pass through here?" Fujin chuckled and said, "I guess you could say so. Anyways, how do you guys wanna fight? One-on-one or something else?" Miko said, "I'm kicking Yuri's ass first." Yuri snorted and replied, "I can beat all of you together." Fujin chuckled and said, "Alright, let's have a battle royale then. All 6 will fight and no one will form teams." Teru said, "Oh. That sounds fun. When do we start?" Hoka shouted. Now, chapter 155, another battle royale. As soon as Hoka said yes, both he and Miko attacked Fujin. However, Fujin flickered before they got close. Teru, Yuri and Hana moved behind to create a safe distance. They were surprised to see Miko and Hoka attack their former teammate. A scowl formed on Miko's face. She complained, "Now he will keep hiding till we are done fighting." Teru asked, "What do you mean?" Hoka was about to answer when everyone noticed something. Very strong winds were headed towards them. Yuri thought, right, Fujin has an affinity to wind nature. Wind is weak against fire. He quickly made hand signs. Fire release fireball jutsu. Miko and Hoka saw the fireball and flickered away. The fireball hit the winds and was amplified and dispersed. Unfortunately, the winds carried these amplified flames back towards the group. Yuri was shocked. Hana and Teru escaped underground. Yuri also tried escaping, but he was slow. Fujin saw the flaming winds and smirked. "As I expected, that moron blew fire into the winds." The jutsu he used was a powered-down variation of the infinite breakthrough jutsu. It focused more on the wind flow rather than creating sharp winds, so the jutsu was pretty harmless despite its great momentum. At most, it could send someone flying for a few meters. The flaming winds hit Yuri. However, his resistance to fire was quite high. He wasn't injured much, just some of his clothes caught fire, but he doused them quickly. Unfortunately for him, Fujin wasn't his only opponent. His words were fresh in the minds of Hoka and Miko. Both flickered and appeared next to him. Yuri's Sharingan noticed them flickering towards them. He immediately tossed shurikens at them. Miko neutralized his shurikens with her own, while Hoka attacked from a range with vacuum bomb. At such a close distance, Yuri couldn't dodge. The vacuum bomb hit one of his chakra points and sealed it. It disoriented him. Hoka noticed the opportunity and attacked him again. 8 trigram 16 palms. Yuri tried struggling, but he was no match for Hoka's taijutsu. Hoka sealed Yuri's chakra points. After getting his last hit, Hoka said, "You're out." He placed his palm on Yuri's chest and pushed him towards a tree. However, at the same time, he heard, "So are you." Teru appeared under Hoka and grabbed his legs. Earth release headhunter jutsu. Hoka was dragged underground. Leaving only his head above the ground, Teru placed a kunai on his forehead. Hoka cursed internally. "Shit, I got distracted." He sighed and said, "I give up." At the same time, Miko launched shurikens at Teru. Teru immediately blocked them all with the kunai. They both began fighting. Hana stayed away from Teru and Miko and just observed them. Fujin too observed from a distance while thinking, "Did they forget about me?" His eyes wandered towards Hana. He commented, "Looks like I am not the only one who likes to wait till others are exhausted and injured." Unfortunately, there are no rewards for winning. Wind instantaneous body jutsu. Fujin flickered along with the wind. Hana, whose attention was majorly on Teru and Miko, was also keeping an eye on Fujin, though she didn't expect Fujin to move so quickly. She was prepared to face him. She attacked him with the gentle fist style. The basic rule, while fighting against a Hyuga, is to keep a distance. But Fujin was interested in measuring his progress, so he engaged Hana in taijutsu. Hana's strikes were on point. But Fujin blocked all the attacks with ease. His speed was much faster than hers. He never allowed her fingers or palm to touch his body. Hana was shocked. How much did he improve in just over a year? I can't even touch him. After blocking her continuously for a minute, Fujin concluded, in terms of taijutsu, she isn't anywhere near Hoka's level. Not seeing any point in extending it any further, Fujin decided to attack. Hana attacked Fujin again, but he grabbed her wrist and threw her into the air. He exhaled a gentle but strong wind at her which sent her flying back towards a tree. She flipped in the air and landed on the tree on her feet. Fujin said, "You have lost." Hana had a complicated expression. She nodded. Fujin smiled and left towards Teru and Miko. Hana saw him leaving and thought, though they didn't say anything, I am the only genin in this group. And I'm the weakest. I need to work hard or else I will never be at their level. Fujin guessed Hana's inner turmoil. After all, being the only one who wasn't promoted to a chunin would hurt, especially considering that she was only 11. Miko and Teru were engaged in a tough fight. Teru was superior in speed and taijutsu, even in ninjutsu. He had an edge with earth and water elements, but he had to be very careful about not looking into her eyes. Suddenly they heard, "You two didn't forget about me, did you?" Immediately they looked towards Fujin. He was sitting on a branch. As soon as they saw him, Fujin exhaled strong winds towards them. Both made hand signs and escaped underground. Fujin muttered, "While escaping underground is a good defense, it doesn't mean that you can abuse it without any consequences." Fujin jumped off the branch. Chakra gathered on his fist. He punched the ground right above them. Cracks formed on the ground. The impact of the punch could be felt underground. Teru felt the shockwaves and frowned. He wondered, is Fujin good at earth release as well? Teru made a few hand signs. The ground around him hardened. It protected him from the shockwaves. However, Miko was hit. She escaped above ground, only to have a kunai placed at the back of her neck. Fujin said, "You have lost." A scowl formed on Miko's face. She gave up unwillingly while complaining in her heart, "I always manage to detect and neutralize sneak attacks in mission. Why do I fall to his sneak attacks every time?" As soon as she gave up, spikes formed on the ground and launched at Fujin. Fujin instantly flickered out of the way. His eyes glowed as he watched Teru's location underground. More spikes and spears kept forming and launching at Fujin. Fujin dodged all. He thought, while hiding underground isn't always good, if someone hides like a porcupine, then I don't have a second way of dealing with them. Just vacuum bullet, but that might kill him, so not usable in this situation. Realizing that he was only wasting his chakra, Teru left the underground. He said, "You have grown strong, Fujin. I didn't expect your wind release to improve so much," Fujin replied. "So have you. I never thought you would develop a porcupine-like battle tactic." Teru smirked. This battle tactic was very annoying. He enjoyed using it against Yuri. Fujin said, "Wanna end this the old way?" Teru replied, "With our fists, sure." Both rushed towards each other. Their fists clashed. They followed up with a flurry of punches and kicks. Teru was stronger and faster than Hana, but Fujin was still faster and stronger than him. In a minute, Fujin landed 7 hits on Teru. Fujin kicked at his chest, but Teru raised his forearms in defense. The kick landed on his forearms and sent him flying for a few meters. Fujin didn't pursue him. Teru flipped in the air and landed on his feet. He complained, "Shit, what have you been eating?" Fujin just grinned without replying. Teru said, "I'll use my full power." "Be careful, this is the taijutsu of my clan." Chakra began gathering around Teru's fists and feet. Fujin could see it clearly. He understood what Teru was up to. A smile crept on his face. Teru didn't understand why Fujin was smiling. He sent a punch straight at Fujin's chest. Fujin formed a fist and gathered chakra in it. He punched Teru's fist. Both the punches clashed. Teru's eyes widened in shock as he felt the strength in Fujin's punch. Fujin applied more force and sent him flying. Teru flipped in the air once again and landed on his feet. But this time he was sent flying for 25 meters, and he skidded backwards a few meters more. He asked, "How do you know Senjutsu Jutsu style?" Fujin said, "Did you forget who my sensei is?" Teru smiled bitterly. "I didn't think he would teach it to someone outside the clan." Teru shook his right hand and said, "I give up. I can barely feel my right hand anymore." Fujin said, "Yeah, mine kinda hurts too." He thought, "I should check whether Kakuzua's skin hardening jutsu is in the library. It might be a perfect combination with the Senju Taijutsu style. Maybe I should discuss it with Renjuro." Chapter 156, Questioning Life Choices. With the fight over, the other 4 gathered around Fujin and Teru. Miko looked at Yuri and taunted, "Yuri, how does it feel to brag and get eliminated first?" Yuri argued back, "You guys cheated. The rules said no teams, but you two know. You 3 cooperated to deal with me." Miko scoffed. "Who said they could take all 3 of us by himself?" Yuri was about to argue more, but Teru said, "Drop it, Yuri. There's no point in arguing." Yuri snorted and stayed quiet. The group discussed for some time their jutsus, battle tactics, and so on. After an hour, they dispersed. Fujin went back to his home while thinking, "Not bad. This went much better than I thought. I never thought we would spend most of our time talking about jutsus and tactics." Was surprisingly insightful. After reaching home, Fujin cleaned up the mess and waited for Genki to return. He made a shadow clone and sent it to the library. The aim was to find Kakuzua's skin hardening jutsu and any other good jutsu available in the B section. Sometime later, Genki arrived. His jaws dropped on seeing Fujin's house from the outside. He thought, "What the hell? Why does he need such a huge house? And where did he get the money for this? Did he somehow convince Lord Hokage to give him another reward?" He knocked on the door with his mind full of questions. Fujin opened the door immediately and welcomed him in. Genki awkwardly said, "It looks like you're doing very well, Fujin." Fujin didn't understand the context, so he just nodded and said, "Yes, sensei." Genki sighed internally. He realized that Fujin didn't understand him. Fujin asked, "Would you like to have something, sensei?" Genki was surprised. He asked, "What do you have?" Fujin answered, "Well, I have some snacks, and can cook a few pieces of fried chicken quickly." Genki said sure. Fujin made a shadow clone who got to work. Genki saw the clone and thought, "He's using clones for this? Don't tell me he made such a huge house to accommodate his clones." Genki said, "While your clone cooks, tell me what all you have experienced after graduating." Fujin. Both sat down as Fujin began telling Genki most of the unimportant events. Genki listened carefully while asking questions or passing comments, compliments and criticisms. They ate the fried chicken while discussing. After they finished chatting, Genki asked, "Fujin, did Lord Hokage give this house to you as a reward?" Fujin tilted his head and asked, "Does Lord Hokage give houses as rewards?" He looked down and muttered softly, "Did I just get scammed? I should go and ask him." Genki heard that and freaked out. Given his past experiences, Genki was sure that Fujin would take his name and ask the Hokage to reimburse him. Heck, he might even ask for interest. He quickly refused. No, Lord Hokage doesn't reward like this. I just asked because I was wondering how you could afford such a place." Fujin understood and said, "Oh, we did back-to-back rank A missions. I killed some ninjas with a bounty during it." Genki was surprised. He asked in disbelief, "Rank A missions?" Fujin nodded and said, "Yup. Renjuro-sensei took us with him." Genki didn't say anything. He thought, Fujin and his squad already did rank A missions. They did rank A missions at an age when I was still in the academy. Heck, I did my first rank A mission after Fujin graduated. Genki had arrived here to motivate and encourage his student and inspire him a little bit. Instead, he began questioning his life choices and achievements. He recalled how he introduced himself as an elite chunin to every class he taught. He recalled how he celebrated all night when he was promoted to Junin, and now he found out that his students undertook missions at the same level of difficulty as him in just a year's time. And his students seemed to be doing financially better than him too. Genki sighed in his heart thinking, "When I taught the class, I always thought that I will feel pride when my students surpass me and have great achievements. I never imagined that I'd be depressed. In all those thoughts I was already old and my students were in their 20s. Fujin didn't understand why Genki was lost in thoughts. He said, "Unfortunately, the missions were classified, so I can't tell you the details, sensei." Genki replied, "It's fine. Anyways, rank A missions are very dangerous. It's fine when someone as strong as Renjiro leads, but don't try it without him." Fujin nodded. Even with Renjiro, they almost died, though it was likely that Renjiro's presence attracted Kokuzu's. Fujin asked, "Are you still teaching, sensei? Or are you doing missions?" Genki answered, "I was promoted to Junin after you guys graduated, so I have been doing rank A missions." Fujin's eyes brightened. He said, "Congrats, sensei." Genki smiled. Some of his pride returned, though it was fated to be crushed again. Fujin asked, "Can you invite me on rank A missions, sensei?" Genki immediately refused. "No, they are too dangerous." He thought, "What the hell, I thought he admired me. Instead, he just wants to take advantage of me." His greediness hasn't decreased one bit. Fujin said, "Come on, sensei, I can handle myself as long as I am not facing Junins, and my sensor skills and wind nature manipulation provide the perfect support." However, Genki remained adamant. No. Fujin looked at Genki with a deadpan expression. Genki thought, "Why is he looking at me like this?" He became a bit uncomfortable and asked, "What?" Fujin said, "At least give a proper unk." Genki sighed and said, "I am a newly promoted Junin. I am not our team leader, so I can't bring you along anyways." Fujin thought for a bit. "That is reasonable." Fujin sighed and said, "All right, sensei, but at least recommend my name if you need someone with a skills like mine." Genki finally nodded and said, "All right, but don't keep your hopes too high." Fujin smiled and nodded. Genki gave Fujin some advice on how to take care of the house and left. After he left, Fujin sighed. Playing host is too much work, though it should be fine once in a while. Also, none of my guests today noticed the basement. Looks like this cover is good enough. Fujin created a shadow clone. It dispelled itself almost immediately. The memories of the clone were passed to the clone in the library. It dispelled itself. Fujin received the memories and was surprised. "Wow, I didn't think there was so much good stuff that I never checked." The jutsu Kakuzu has used is called the Iron Skin Jutsu. In addition, many barrier jutsus are also placed in the B section. They will be good to have alongside my Fian jutsu. There is also the summoning jutsu Rashomon. That would be another good defense to have, though there is no triple or more layered Rashomon jutsus. Still, even without them, this is great. Wild Lion's main jutsu is another good one. It is the jutsu that Jirai used to extend and strengthen his hair, and Needle Jizo jutsu, based on this jutsu, is also there. Actually, I can form a new defense system with Rashomon. Iron Skin and Lion's main jutsus, combined with my high speed and intercepting or deterring attacks at mid-range with wind jutsus, injuring me will become very difficult. Tobirama's Bringer of Darkness Bin jutsu to target the Uchiha is present in the B section as well. So 5 B rank jutsus that I will need to master, and might need some barrier jutsus as well. I will focus on these after I am done with my lightning release. Once I am done with all of them, I will try the summoning jutsu with that good defense. I should be fine, even if I encounter wild and ferocious summons, who won't reason with anyone. Chapter 157 Castle Defense. Fujin entered the lowest floor in the basement. He extended his palm and looked at it. Chakra began spinning in his palm, taking a circular shape. Fujin decided, it's been a long time since I practiced this jutsu. In fact, I haven't practiced it since I graduated from the academy. Fujin began practicing the Rasengan. With all the seals he inscribed, he was no longer worried about anyone seeing this. He was able to form the Rasengan properly, though it was a bit slower. He continued his training using different methods. He initially tried decreasing the time needed to form it as much as he could. When he couldn't decrease it any further, he began trying to form the Rasengan while running. After training for 2 days, Fujin managed to improve his control over Rasengan considerably. He was able to form a proper sphere, and he improved the speed of creating the Rasengan by a huge degree. He could now create a Rasengan in fractions of a second, and while moving around freely, and even while running on walls or ceilings. A smile formed on Fujin's face as he watched the Rasengan. He thought, great, Rasengan has been mastered to a sufficient degree, though I should still test it out in mock battles. More importantly, I can prepare for Rasengan when I'm ready. That's an S-rank jutsu that no living ninja would like to get hit by. Fujin played with the ball of chakra in his hand as he thought. That said, it's best to never use this jutsu. Aside from the trouble of explaining how I learnt this, there is also the issue of its effectiveness. A sword with wind chakra flow will be far more dangerous in most scenarios. The only time a Rasengan could be more effective is when I'm clashing head-on against another strong jutsu. But, considering the high-speed nature of my fights until now, such clashes are almost non-existent. A giant Rasengan could be more effective, but it'll consume a lot of chakra. So again, it won't be worth it until I can find a way to significantly increase my chakra reserves. After observing the Rasengan properly, Fujin dispersed it and his clone, and began training again. Since he already had formed a Rasengan properly, he was progressing rapidly. Fujin's next mission with Tomatis and the rest was uneventful once again. It was a protection mission again, and they didn't even encounter any ninjas. After the mission, Fujin returned to training in his basement. Around him, there were multiple metal mannequin dummies. He had bought them to test his jutsus. Fujin created a Rasengan, stepped forward, and smashed the Rasengan into a dummy. The Rasengan sank into its abdomen, creating a hole in it. Soon it exploded and blasted the dummy, sending its pieces flying across the basement. Fujin grinned. Excellent power, now I need to test it in mock battles. Fujin made a hand sign, and a shadow clone popped next to him. Both moved away from each other. Fujin began creating the Rasengan and charged at his clone at the same time. Meanwhile, the clone attacked Fujin with wooden shurikens and wind explosion spheres to keep him away, and it also moved away from him whenever Fujin managed to close the distance between them. Fujin's goal was to hit his clone with the Rasengan without using any other jutsu or distractions. While the clone just tried to avoid getting hit. After a day of intense training, Fujin was breathing heavily. He complained, "What the heck? It's impossible to hit someone who is as fast as you to hit with the Rasengan. I chased after my clone the whole day without any success. Though my clone did use body flicker whenever I was about to succeed. I guess I should try performing Rasengan while flickering around, otherwise it will be hopeless." By the time he had to go for the next mission, Fujin could use the Rasengan while flickering in his basement. He had managed to hit his clone a few times. He was very happy with his progress. Fujin met Tomatis and the rest outside the mission center. Since he had mastered the Rasengan, his mood was quite good. Sarutori Tomatis had just selected a mission, he said. Since our last 2 missions didn't have much fighting, I have selected one where our opponents could be strong. Our mission is in the land of noodles. The daimyo of that country received intel that some rogue ninjas are going to attack his castle. He is afraid that his current forces won't be able to stop them. Inuzuka Tadashi grinned and said, "Now that sounds like a fun mission." Fujin nodded and asked, "It does, but why is this mission only rank B? I would assume that a threat to daimyo would be classified as a rank S mission." Ryota said, "Could be multiple reasons. Like maybe the threat isn't that big," Tomatis added, "or the teams that undertake rank A or S missions can deter those guys from attacking, and they might postpone their attack until these teams leave." Fujin said, "That makes sense. I didn't think that a daimyo would be that brave." Tomatis chuckled and said, "Don't say that loud. Anyways, my guess is that daimyo and his family have already escaped to a safe place. They probably left behind body doubles to trick their opponents into attacking the castle. Anyways, let's leave." The group nodded and left immediately. After a day of travel, they reached their destination. The group observed the castle from a distance. It was a moderate-sized castle with a wall surrounding it. Tadashi said, "So this is the castle that we have to defend." Ryota said, "It isn't as big as I thought. Though it ain't a bad thing. At this size we will be able to defend it properly." Tomatis asked, "Do you think you can make use of the walls, Ryota?" Ryota answered, "It's tough to say. Even if I could, it won't be much helpful against ninjas. At max I can get a few surprise kills." Tomatis said, "Depending on our opponents, just that might be enough to give us an edge. Anyways, let's go." They traveled quickly and reached the castle. Tomatis handed the mission scroll to the gatekeeper, and they were allowed to enter the castle. As soon as they entered, a ninja flickered in front of them. He said, "Thank you for coming to protect us. I am Akira Soten. I am responsible for the defense of this castle." Tomatis said, "I am Sarutari Tomatis. Let's enter the castle. You can brief us with all the details." Soten nodded and led the Konoha team to a room in the castle. Everyone took their seats. Tomatis said, "We didn't get much information in the mission statement. Can you tell me the exact details?" Soten nodded and said, "I can't give you the source of the information, but from what we know, we expect to be attacked by 18 rogue ninjas. Most of them will be at the Chunin level. We don't know who their leader is, but we expect him to be at the Junin level as he is able to organize such an attack. As for the defense, I am the only Junin in the castle, so I will take on the enemy leader. We also have 12 Chunins and 17 Jennings, so we are confident at defending. But we asked for help in case something outside our calculations happens and to decrease our casualties." Fujin heard the details and his left eye twitched. He thought, "This guy is considered a Junin." Tomatis nodded and inquired, "Do you know where those guys are located? We could launch preemptive attacks and cause them casualties." Soten replied, "No, we don't know their hideout. Also, the daimyo wants us to kill every last one of them. If we attack their hideout, then many of them might manage to escape." Tomatis said, "All right, is the daimyo still in the castle?" Soten didn't speak and just shook his head. Tomatis asked, "Do we have any idea when the attack will happen?" Soten answered, "No, I will arrange for you guys to live on the highest floor with daimyo and his family. That floor also provides a good view of the surroundings, so you can keep an eye on any attackers. Of course, give priority to your rest, as we need you guys at full readiness when the attack happens." Soten led them to the topmost floor. There were 3 rooms on this floor. There was also a small balcony on all sides equipped with binoculars and other tools to assist in keeping a watch on the surroundings. One of these rooms had a few people who looked very scared. They were the body doubles of the daimyo and his family. Soten explained the defenses and traps that they had set up and asked whether Tomatis and his subordinates would like to set up more. Tomatis agreed and asked Ryota and Katsumi to add more traps. They both got to work. Tadashi volunteered to go scout the nearby areas. Tomatis went to check out some stuff. Meanwhile, Fujin decided to laze on the top floor. He thought, "I was kinda excited. But this mission seems to be a bore too. If Soten is considered a Junin, then I could probably go and kill the entire enemy camp. Sigh, I guess only rank A and S missions will be exciting. Anyways, this country is known as the land of noodles. I wonder how good the noodles from here taste." Fujin left to find the cooks in the palace. The cooks and other common people weren't aware of the incoming attack, so they were relaxed. But they recognized the headband on Fujin's head and were very respectful to him despite his young age. The head cook met Fujin and asked with a smile, "I am the chief cook here. How may I help you, young one?" Fujin replied, "Hello, Chief. I was wondering how good the noodles from this country are." The chief cook's smile disappeared and he asked seriously, "Young man, are you underestimating the noodles from here?" Fujin kept his smile and said, "Nope, I'm just a normal foodie, so give me your best." The chief cook said, "We have 19 varieties of noodle dishes here, and all the 19 varieties are the best among any noodles." Fujin said, "Oh, that's cool. I'll try all 19 varieties during my time here then." Chapter 158, The Carefree Foodie. Over the next couple of days, Fujin tried 17 varieties of noodle dishes. All were delicious and could be put at a similar level as Ikuraka. Soten was dissatisfied with Fujin's carefree nature and acting as if he was on a vacation. But Fujin paid him no heed. Tomatis and the rest also noticed Fujin's attitude, but didn't say anything. They concluded that Fujin had gotten carefree after a couple of very easy missions. They themselves had a similar experience. They believed that Fujin's attitude would improve after they get a mission that gets very serious. Of course, their analysis was incorrect. Fujin was very alert. Despite his carefree attitude, he was very serious. Once the fighting begins, he will be as serious as he can be. His actions were only a result of him deciding to relax mentally and physically after a longish training routine, as they had nothing to do until their opponents decided to show up. On the third afternoon in the castle, Fujin was sitting on the edge of the balcony on the top floor, eating the last of the 19 dishes. It was chicken and mushroom-sauced noodles with basil. As he grabbed the noodles with his chopsticks and ate, he looked straight ahead. His eyes glowed blue as he observed numerous silhouettes trying to approach the castle stealthily. He swallowed the noodles and said with a steady voice, "They are here." After saying that, he began eating again while thinking, "Just 18, these guys need to find their source and hang him." There are over 50 attackers, and all have chakra, though none are exceptionally strong. Anyways, I didn't think that standing at an altitude would increase the range of my chakra-enhanced eyesight so much. I can barely see a few hundred meters when at ground level. But from here, I can observe for almost 3 kilometers. A shame that the chakra field doesn't extend in this manner too. Fujin's voice was heard clearly by the people on the top floor. Tomatis, Ryota, Katsumi and Tadashi immediately appeared behind him, only to see him eating in a very relaxed manner. Black lines formed on their faces. Fujin said, "The intel was incorrect. There are over 50 attackers." Hearing that, all 4 became serious and began observing the surroundings. The attackers were still over a couple of kilometers away, but the Konoha Chunins could see the slight movements in the trees as they moved. Tomatis made a shadow clone who went to warn Soten and get him to ready his men. Ryota said with a bitter smile, "It looks like we hit a steel plate this time. It will be a tough fight." Tomatis said, "Focus on keeping yourself alive. I know that the mission statement is to keep them alive. But keeping ourselves alive is the most important thing. We can't do our mission if we are dead, especially you, Fujin." "Don't get too excited," Fujin replied. "Don't worry. Though their numbers are high, none of them seems exceptionally strong, so we should be fine." Tomatis was surprised. He said, "I didn't expect your sensory skills to be so strong." Fujin replied, "The altitude helps in covering more area. But I can't extend my chakra field that far away, so I am not 100% sure, and we should consider the possibility of someone being able to conceal their chakra." Tomatis nodded and said, "It's good that you are considering these aspects." Fujin asked, "So, what's our plan? With the enemy outnumbering us almost 2-1, the old plans are unusable." Tomatis nodded and said, "We won't focus on trying to defend. Instead, we will move in groups and kill as many of our enemies as quickly as we can. Tadashi and Katsumi will move together. Ryota and Fujin will move with me." Fujin said, "My teamwork with you guys isn't that good yet. It could be bad considering the scale of this battle. Can I move alone instead?" Tomatis frowned. He didn't expect such a request to be made by Fujin. He thought, his request is logically correct. But Lord Heikage asked me to ensure that he doesn't die prematurely. That said, he also said that Fujin is quite strong and could put up a fight even against me. Tomatis asked, "Are you sure? It will be very risky with no one to watch your back." Fujin said, "Don't worry, I can sense who is strong and who ain't, so I will focus on clearing the weaker ones." Tomatis agreed and said, "All right, but be careful." Fujin nodded without looking at him and continued eating his noodles. His teammates watched him with strange looks in their eyes. Meanwhile, Soten began arranging his subordinates into proper positions. Every ninja in the castle became very alert. The common people realized that they were about to be attacked and quickly evacuated to the underground safe house under the castle. The attackers finally began entering within 1 kilometer of the castle and into Fujin's chakra field. Fujin began sensing all of them properly. He didn't find anything odd with any of them. The attackers were spread out across the forest, moving in groups of 2 or 3. He analyzed. 43 are at the genin level, 14 barely into the chunin level, and 2 might be closer to the elite chunin level. Though since they aren't from Konoha, their official ranks might be higher. I guess that the strongest 2 are junins. Still, they are weak. I kinda wish that I got some experience points for grinding these weaklings. Fujin swallowed the remaining noodles in his bowl and placed the bowl down. He said, I'm going in first. Without waiting for anyone's response, he used Wind Instantaneous Body Jutsu. His teammates were surprised again. Tadashi said, did he really go to take the attack to the enemy? Katsumi noted, more importantly, he left with chopsticks in his hands rather than his swords. Ryoto asked, will he be all right? Tamata said, let's hope that he stays fine. Anyways, they're almost here, get ready. All 4 began preparing their opening jutsus. Fujin appeared on a tree about 50 meters from a group of 3. 2 in the front were at the genin level, while the one in the back was at the chunin level. Fujin hid behind a tree. Soon 3 figures appeared close to Fujin. Chakra flowed through the 2 chopsticks Fujin was holding. Fujin threw them at the 2 genins. Both chopsticks pierced through their throats. They dropped down while holding their throats. The chunin in the back was shocked. They hadn't even reached the castle walls yet. Before the chunin could shout to attract attention, a sharp wind cut across his throat. He too joined the dead Jennings. Fujin flickered to the nearest group. He killed 2 groups, consisting of a total of 5 Jennings in a row, before getting to the rear of the attacking forces. Fujin's kills were done very silently. The enemy group wasn't aware of his actions. After killing 8, he set his target on one of the Junins. Behind the enemy lines, there were no obstacles for Fujin. He flickered close to the nearest Junin. After getting in range, he attacked from behind. Wind Release Vacuum Bullet Jutsu. The Junin and his 2 subordinates were moving ahead confidently. They were sure about winning. However, the Junin suddenly felt some danger and moved to his left. The vacuum bullet grazed past his right arm, leaving a cut. The vacuum bullet kept going ahead and pierced through multiple trees. They were shocked and quickly turned around to confront the sneak attacker. Fujin was surprised. He dodged. I guess it might not be so boring after all. The Junin and the 2 Chunnings didn't see anyone behind them. Fujin had already flickered after attacking. One of the Chunnins asked, who attacked us, boss? The Junin said, stay on alert. The enemy should be watching us, and don't get hit by his attack. They stayed on guard for a few seconds, but no new attack happened. The Junin frowned. Is someone trying to kill me, or is it just a tactic to stop me here? No, that attack was strong. I have to keep my guard up. The 3 stood with their backs to each other, watching every direction. Soon, some noise was heard from one direction. 2 Windgale wolves appeared and pounced on them. The Chunnins immediately threw a kunai with an explosion tag on each wolf. Both wolves were dispersed. However, when they were distracted by the wolves, Fujin silently flickered behind them and used air bullet jutsu. The Junin realized and shouted, dodge. He immediately moved away, but the 2 Chunnins were distracted by the wolves. Both got hit by multiple bullets. One of the bullets pierced through one of their hearts, while another pierced through the head of the other Chunin. As soon as the Junin dodged, he threw shurikens at Fujin. However, Fujin flickered out of the way. The Junin was angry at how easily 2 of his subordinates died. He shouted, bastard, I will kill you. Fujin didn't reply. Instead, he threw a few shurikens at him. The Junin easily blocked them with his kunai. However, while he was blocking, Fujin's shadow clone attacked with air bullet jutsu from the rear. The Junin once again dodged quickly. A few scratches appeared on him, but none were life-threatening. The Junin realized he had a clone attack us with those wolves while his main body sneak attacked us, and now he has done the reverse. What a troublesome opponent. Meanwhile, Fujin was thinking. Does he have eyes at the back of his head? Shota 159, the ghostly swordsman. While Fujin was fighting, the remaining forces reached the castle walls. The fight had begun. However, with Soten holding back the second Junin, the Konoha Chunnins began cutting through enemy ranks with ease. After dodging Fujin's attack, the Junin opened a scroll and made a hand sign. The scroll opened in a way that it circled around him. Soon, dozens of kunais with explosion tags were launched from the scroll. Fujin immediately used infinite breakthrough jutsu, while his clone hid underground. The jutsu stopped all the kunais heading towards Fujin. They all exploded. The explosion, however, also dispersed Fujin's jutsu and created a lot of dust cover. The Junin took the opportunity of the dust cover to run away from Fujin. He thought, is that a kid or a monster? How does he know so many jutsus? I don't want to fight him. This attack can fail for all I care. Fujin noticed him running and thought, did he really not figure out that I am a censor? And why hasn't he used any jutsus? As he was running, he suddenly jumped. But his legs were still caught by Fujin's clone. He lost his balance and was about to fall on his face. However, to Fujin's surprise, he managed to get a hold of himself immediately. He pointed his right arm towards the ground to ensure that he didn't fall on his face. At the same time, he threw a kunai at Fujin's clone with his free hand. Unfortunately for him, the clone had caught his legs with just one purpose. The clone immediately exploded. The majority of the force of the explosion was focused on his palms. The explosion completely ruined his two legs. His left leg was blown into two, his right leg was burned to the bone and was barely attached. He yelled hoarsely in pain. His yell stopped the next second when an air bullet pierced through his heart, killing him. Fujin made a clone to collect his body as he thought. What a strange opponent. His survival instinct was top-notch. He could dodge deadly attacks from blind spots with ease. The only reason why my clone managed to grab his legs is that act itself didn't have any possibility of harming him, which is probably why he was slow at jumping. But he didn't use any jutsu at all other than summoning those exploding kunais. Could it be that he didn't know any good jutsu at all? Fujin analyzed for a few seconds before concluding, yes, that is probably the case. I have to admire his perseverance to train to this extent without any proper system. If he was a part of any of the major villages, he might have actually become a famous Junin. Say, I should be glad that I transmigrated to Konoha. If I wasn't a part of the major villages, then I would only have the knowledge of learning wind manipulation. Face engine and chakra control exercises, even becoming a ninja would have been difficult. Fujin spread his chakra field to observe the battle happening on the walls. The battle had just begun and was at full force. Fujin unsheathed a sword. Chakra began flowing through it as he thought. Though well, time to harvest some lives. Wind instantaneous body jutsu. Fujin appeared close to where the fighting was happening. He had already eliminated 11 enemies, bringing the total numbers close to equal. A Chunin from the land of noodles was engaged in an intense battle against a rogue Chunin. However, he was shocked when he saw a sword cut off his opponent's head in one swing. But before he could see the face of the swordsman, he had already disappeared. The same scenes began happening all throughout the battlefield. 16 ninjas fell to Fujin's sword with this tactic. With the land of noodles ninjas getting free, they began ganging up on the enemies. Soon the rogue ninjas were at a complete disadvantage. The leader of the rogue ninjas frowned upon noticing this. He didn't understand how this was happening. Seeing the tides of the battle change, all 5 Konoha Chunins focused on the enemy leader and appeared around him. His face became very ugly. He thought, how the fuck did I fail so badly? He stopped fighting and said, I surrender. Sotun was surprised. He stopped attacking and said, all right, don't resist. He knocked the enemy out and restrained him. Soon after, the other rogue ninjas were killed as well. Sotun sighed in relief. He looked at Tomatis and said, thank you. Without your warning and help, we would have been in a very difficult spot. Sotun was fully aware of the capabilities of his subordinates. He had prepared himself for a loss and prayed for a miracle when he heard the enemy numbers. Seeing how easily they won, he figured that the Konoha ninjas won him the war. Tomatis chuckled and said, you need to thank Fujin. He was one who sensed and reported them to me. Tomatis said this intentionally, as he was aware that Sotun was dissatisfied with Fujin. Sotun was surprised. He recalled how he was angry at Fujin. He thought, thank God I didn't say anything, and asked the chefs to ensure that he got our best food. He bowed to Fujin and said, the land of noodles will remember your assistance. Thank you, young man, we are in your debt. Fujin was surprised. He thought, wow, a 180 turn and even faster than Sasuke. Looks like he really loves his village. Makes sense, I guess, considering that he stayed behind to defend. Fujin said, you are welcome. There are 10 dead bodies in the forest. Preferably have your subordinates clear them. If the civilians see them, they might freak out. Sotun was about to nod when he realized what Fujin had said. He thought, 10. Fujin's teammates were shocked as well. Tomatis asked, Fujin, did you kill 10 enemy ninjas in the forest before the attack reached us? Fujin replied, well, 11. One of them was a bit strong, so I stored his body in case he has a bounty. Hearing Fujin's answer left them speechless, unlike the land of noodles ninjas. The Konoha ninjas had noticed Fujin cutting down the enemies. Though they didn't see all his kills, they all had only one thought. Did this 11-year-old kid kill more than us 4 combined? Sotun was the first one to overcome his shock. He said, show me the body. I'll tell you whether he has any bounty. Fujin looked at Tomatis, who nodded. Fujin summoned his body from the scroll. When Soten's eyes lay on the dead body's face, he was terrified. He yelled, "The noodle thief!" His shout attracted attention. The Land of Grass ninjas were very surprised on hearing it. On the other hand, the Konoha ninjas thought, "The what?" Soten looked at Fujin with a terrified expression on his face. He said, "He is the noodle thief. He is a terrible rogue ninja. How did you manage to kill him?" Tomatis and others watched Fujin. However, Fujin was dumbfounded. He thought, "Terrible rogue ninja, he really was terrible, but I don't think he means the same. How the heck did this weakling get such a response from him?" Fujin asked calmly, "Can you give details about him?" Soten said with some fear in his voice. "He is a rogue ninja from the land of tea. He was expelled from the village when he was only a genin. Apparently, he trained by himself to reach the Junin level without any guidance. He migrated to this country and began stealing our caravans when they exported noodles. He used to only attack caravans that weren't guarded by ninjas or only guarded by genins. We were forced to issue a rank B protection mission for every caravan we set. We issued rank B, rank A, and even rank S missions to hunt him down. Unfortunately, no matter what we did, no one ever managed to find him. He was so good that we never even received any information on the jutsus that he specialized in. Due to him, we lost noodles worth tens of millions ryo and have to spend millions on protection every year. In the end, our daimyo issued a 13 million ryo bounty on his head hoping that someone might kill him." Fujin was shocked. "What the fuck? This weakling has a 13 million bounty, and how the fuck did he survive against rank S missions? Don't tell me that his freakish survival instincts warned him every time and enabled him to hide properly from the hunters, or did he just find a perfect hiding spot?" Fujin's analysis was on point. The noodle thief had found an old base created in secret by the Land of Water during the Third Great Ninja War. The base was difficult to spot naturally and was made to be a perfect hidden base with the help of Fuin Jutsu. Post the war, Kirigujka got embroiled in a civil war and the base was forgotten. In addition, his survival instincts always alerted him when someone very strong was out to hunt him, ensuring that he stayed hidden. Due to this, his reputation got built rapidly. Unfortunately, his instincts didn't kick in this time until he was attacked by Fujin, and his lucky run was over. Seeing that Fujin wasn't saying anything, Soten stopped asking and said, "Lord Daimyo will be thrilled to know that you managed to neutralize him. Wait here for a day. Lord Daimyo should arrive at the castle by tomorrow morning." Tomatis agreed to stay back another day as they needed some rest as well. While Soten was talking with them, the ninjas from the Land of Noodles were talking about their fights. Soon they all began talking about the ghostly swordsman who helped many of them. For years to come, the legend of the ghostly swordsman will be spoken in this country. Many would speculate that Fujin was the ghostly swordsman, but none would be sure as they never saw the face of the ghostly swordsman. Shota 160 future daimyo's invitation, Konoha chunins retreated to their room after the battle was over. Tadashi couldn't resist but asked, "Fujin, how did you manage to kill a Junin?" Fujin shrugged and said, "He was very weak." Ryoto asked, "He is a Junin. How can he be weak?" Fujin chuckled and said, "If he was in my Chunin exam, I am sure that he won't even get promoted to Chunin." Fujin's teammates suddenly had strange expressions. Initially, they assumed that Fujin was being modest, but now Fujin had implied that the students in his Chunin exams were stronger. Ryota asked, "What do you mean? Didn't he know some sort of secret jutsus?" Fujin said, "During our fight, he had plenty of opportunities to use jutsus, but he didn't use any. Even in death he didn't use any jutsu, so most likely he didn't know any jutsu at all. He just had a very strong survival instinct that allowed him to dodge multiple killing blows. I guess that he was just lucky to never be discovered." Fujin's answer left them dumbfounded. Tadashi's chin dropped. He exclaimed, "You've got to be kidding me." His dog Kenta barked in agreement. After the moment of disbelief passed, Tomatis said, "Fujin, about the bounty." Fujin looked at him and asked, "What about it?" Before Tomatis answered, Fujin said, "Oh, we divide the bounty rewards as well, right?" Tomatis nodded. Fujin said, "All right." Tomatis smiled. He was hoping that Fujin would answer this way. If Fujin had refused to share, he would have kicked him out of the team. He said, "While we do usually share such bounty rewards, all the work was done by you in this case, so you can keep the entire reward. Does anyone else disagree?" Fujin was surprised to see that no one showed any dissatisfaction. He asked, "Are you guys sure? I don't mind dividing the reward equally." Fujin really didn't mind. After all, money wasn't much help in this world. The stuff that could aid Fujin in getting stronger. such as the elemental crystals, couldn't be bought with money. At the very least, it couldn't be bought with just a few million ryo. Tomatis said, "Yup, we are sure." Fujin didn't insist anymore and just nodded. He thought, wow, never thought an entire group would say no to millions of ryo. If this was my old world, even the richest person would have said yes without a single thought. Heck, I'd be worried whether they would plot something when I sleep. So many cases where friends and even family turned on each other just for money, despite doing well financially. Fujin looked at the smiling faces of his teammates and sighed in his mind. How good it'd have been if that monkey-fox hybrid was as kind as them. The next morning, Daimyo, his family and the guards returned to the castle. Saturn updates him on all the events. After doing some preparations, they organize a small ceremony and invite the Konoha ninjas. The Konoha ninjas arrived. The room was big and almost occupied the entire floor. At the center of the room was a long conference table with chairs around it. Fujin observed carefully. The daimyo sat at one end with a couple of samurai bodyguards standing next to him. The daimyo was very old. In the chairs adjacent to him, a young man and a young girl were sitting. A few more officials sat next to them. Soten asked the Konoha ninjas to take the seats opposite the daimyo. Tomatis sat on the chair exactly opposite the daimyo, while Fujin and the rest sat in adjacent chairs. The young man beside the daimyo said, "I am Kikara. I thank you for doing the job so efficiently. Despite our estimates being incorrect, we were able to eliminate all the enemy with 0 losses thanks to you." Tomatis replied with a smile, "No need to thank us, it was our mission." Kikara and some of the subordinates of Daimyo praised the Konoha ninjas a lot. They paid additional monetary rewards to them due to the increased difficulty of the mission. The Daimyo signed a letter addressing Hiruzen praising the work done by them. After an hour of boring talks mixed with great food, Fujin was given the 13 million ryo bounty. Shikara, who presented the bounty, said, "Soten couldn't stop singing praises of you. Are you also the ghostly swordsman who helped out others?" Fujin replied, "Nope. I am just a normal swordsman." Kikara observed Fujin's face, but he couldn't read anything. He thought, based on the information, I'm sure that he is the one who cut them down. But looks like he doesn't want the extra attention. Kikara was very impressed with Fujin. He was young, strong and didn't seek fame. He said, "Fujin, I will be sworn in as the daimyo for this country in a couple of years. Would you like to be a part of my guardian team?" Kikara's proposal surprised a lot of people. Meanwhile, Fujin's eyebrows twitched involuntarily. He politely said, "I will consider it." Before waiting for any response, he turned around and joined his team. Kikara looked awkwardly as his first ever invite was ignored in this manner. Knowing his inexperience, the old daimyo finally spoke. "The land of noodles will be in your debt. If you ever want to or have time, feel free to visit us." He looked at Fujin and continued, "Our chefs will have the best dishes prepared for you. As for the ghostly swordsman, I will see that no one mentions him being you." Fujin nodded while thinking, "This old guy is smart." After some more formalities, the Konoha team left. While leaving, Ryota said, "Wow, I thought you would accept Fujin. Being a guardian of a daimyo is a huge honor." Fujin replied, "I doubt I'll get many opportunities to gain experience as a bodyguard, and it's unlikely that they will suffer a bigger threat than the last attack anytime soon. So it would be very boring." While Fujin said that, his thoughts were completely different. Seriously, why do strong ninjas even have respect for the daimyos? It's not like they have any real power. Their only real achievement is being born as the first child of a daimyo. I am surprised that someone like Danzo or any other psycho didn't get rid of them and took control of all the finances and management of entire countries. Tomatis said, "While the job is boring, it is very prestigious, and there are a lot of perks to being a guardian of a daimyo. The most important being that you can be an ambassador for our village and use your influence to send most of the missions to Konoha." Fujin said, "Oh, I didn't think from that point of view. But isn't our mission center full of missions anyways?" Tomatis said, "Yeah, that's true." He became silent as he recalled the losses from the previous Great Wars. After a day's journey, the group returned to Konoha and accepted the mission rewards. Tomatis said, "You guys can leave. I will hand the daimyo's letter to Lord Hokage and report him on the mission as well." Others nodded and left. Tomatis entered the Hokage's office and greeted Hiruzen and handed him the letter and said, "Our mission this time became a few times more difficult. The daimyo of the land of noodles sent you a letter." Hiruzen read it and said, "Looks like the daimyo is very impressed by your work. He has especially praised Fujin a lot. How is your experience with him so far?" Tomatis nodded and said, "The kid is good. He didn't do anything in the previous 2 missions. But in this mission, he was invaluable. he spotted the attack long before others. In the fight, he killed 1 Junin, 6 Chunins and 20 Jennings, and he helped subdue the leader of the rogues as well. Hiruzen analyzed for a bit and said, the data on the noodle thief seems inconsistent. Though he had a huge bounty, there are no records of him being in any significant fight. Tamata said, yeah, actually, Fujin said that he was very weak, he just had a good survival instinct. I thought he was just being humble, but that might indeed be the case. Hiruzen nodded and said, regardless, it is a very good performance. Tamatas agreed and added, his attitude is good too. Though he killed the noodle thief by himself, he was willing to share the bounty with the entire team. We didn't accept it, but the kid is very selfless. A weird expression formed on Hiruzen's face as he thought, selfless, is he talking about the same person? Tamatas didn't notice the change in expression. He reported the remaining details to Hiruzen before leaving. After he left, Hiruzen wondered, but it's good that he was willing to share the rewards with his team. But how did he become so selfless all of a sudden? Does he only become greedy in front of me? Hiruzen's analysis was very close to the truth. Strong ninjas like Hiruzen and Renjiro knew a lot of jutsus that Fujin wanted, and it didn't cost them anything to teach apart from maybe time. So he will always use any means necessary to get some jutsus from them. As for money, in Fujin's eyes, Hiruzen handled all finances of Konoha, and Konoha was the richest hidden village, so he operates under the assumption that Hiruzen is loaded.